Chapter 2732. Missing. These two words made Yiqing Luo's mind suddenly come up with a thought. But that thought was fleeting and she couldn't catch it in time. Yiqing Luo frowned. Looks like, this Mei not only has a strange background, she should be hiding some secret. Yes, so I specially asked someone to investigate what happened after Mei entered the northern continent and discovered. Peach paused again and clenched her fists, her voice was filled with anger. Do you still remember? These 1 month, those rumors about you being abandoned by the Overlord? She's the one who manipulated it? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Yes. All the public opinion is manipulated by her. Peach gritted her teeth. That day at the Peach Blossom restaurant, she was the one who leaked the news of your private room. She was also the one who brought Miss Sun and other women who were very jealous of you to stir up trouble in the restaurant. She kept leading the crowd to cut off the relationship between you and His Majesty. After Yiqing Luo heard Peach's words, she pondered for a while and asked, have you heard of the Palace of Darkness? Of course I have heard of it. Recently it's been in an uproar, claiming to surpass the Imperial Palace and become the #1 palace in Nirvana Realm. I heard that it has attracted a large number of forces to seek shelter and cooperation. Peach frowned slightly. This Mei is indeed very close to the messenger from the Palace of Darkness. What you mean is, Mei is from the Palace of Darkness? Messenger? Hearing how Peach addressed Yan Zhenfei, Yiqing Luo felt strange. You haven't seen the messenger from the Palace of Darkness? Yes. Peach replied, but this messenger is very arrogant and especially likes to be flattered. In order to maintain her mystery, she always wears a veil and will not show her real face. Yiqing Luo nodded thoughtfully. If Mei is from the Palace of Darkness, then I'm afraid, this person from the Palace of Darkness has the intention to target you. Peach thought of something again. Oh yes, the day when Mei appeared in the northern continent was the day we left Qinhua sect. It was that day when Mei appeared. The day they left Qinhua sect? Yiqing Luo suddenly recalled that day on the street. What she sensed was a strong murderous intent. Could it be, the murderous aura released by Plum? She appeared as a collateral relative of the Sun family, Sun Yutong's elder sister. After that, she went around to inquire about you. Moreover, she was very interested in your name. Name? Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. His guess was right. She had crossed paths with Mei before. Although she had changed her appearance. However, his way of doing things was still the same as before. Mei would pay attention to her. It must be because he suspected that she was Yiqing Luo. Later on, maybe because of your face, she believed that you are not Yiqing Luo. But, she still has a deep hostility towards you. Peach probed. Qing Luo, have you thought of who this Mei is? No. Yiqing Luo shook her head as she had no clue at all. Her hand which was knocking on the table paused, but I know that she believes that I'm not Yiqing Luo, not because of my disguise technique, but because the envoy from Secluded Palace doesn't believe that I'm Yiqing Luo. You also know the emissary of the Palace of Darkness? Peach understood the deeper meaning of this sentence. Chapter 2733. She paused for a moment and raised her eyes slightly as her gaze went past Peach and landed on Yan Xiaoyi. Following that, word by word, she spoke clearly, Yan Zhenfei. What? Yan Xiaoyi stood up abruptly and the long table in front of her shook because of her movement. Xiaoyi. Xiao Jin immediately pulled Yan Xiaoyi's arm and used one arm to hold her shoulders. Sit down first. Yan Xiaoyi sat back down on the soft cushion under Xiao Jin's strength. She pursed her lips as her eyes were filled with a cold intent. The envoy from Secluded Palace, is Yan Zhenfei? Now she's called Yan Fei. Yiqing Luo narrated the process of Sun Yutong and Mei stopping her in a concise manner. She thought I'm Yiqing Luo's fake, so Mei naturally thought so too. Which means, Mei is indeed from Secluded Palace. Peach's tone turned solemn. If that's the case, why did secluded palace appear? For Peach raised her eyes and looked at Dmo Xian. Now that secluded palace is in the limelight and Overlord is unable to return to the palace to manage, there are already many people saying Overlord's #1 legend will probably have to give up his position. Secluded palace was currently in an uproar. And it accurately grasped every cultivator's inner thoughts. Using various gimmicks of being able to advance quickly in a short period of time and would ascend to the upper realms in future, they roped in one force after another. In a short period of time, they were able to catch up to the Imperial Palace's reputation. Such an existence. There was indeed hope to force the Imperial Palace to retreat. Those powerhouses who were originally dissatisfied with the Imperial Palace and the Overlord were naturally happy to see this happen. Yiqing Luo glanced sideways and met Dmo Xian's eyes as a glint of warmth flashed past her eyes. I will not let the Imperial Palace's legend be occupied by a small palace with unknown origins. She would not let secluded palace become the #1 palace in Nirvana realm. She would not let Xian's Imperial Palace be defeated. This secluded palace sounds a little strange. Jun Qingwu, who had been silent, frowned slightly. No matter if it's heaven realm or god realm, there's no way to obtain a permanent advancement in a short period of time. Generally speaking, there was indeed some kind of medicine or secret arts to be able to advance in a short period of time. But that was only for a short period of time. Moreover, his body would be greatly affected. Like the Netherworld Palace, where they were able to quickly ascend to the mystic rank and maintain stability, even Jun Qingwu had never seen it before. No, there is a way. She paused, looked at the crowd and said, Qi of Yin. Everyone's eyes widened. Yiqing Luo propped her chin. Furthermore, it's different from the profound Yin Qi in the West continent. It's another type, a higher-level profound Yin Qi. In the past, the dark forces had used the mysterious Yin Qi to awaken the greed in some people's hearts. Seizing this greed, his consciousness was controlled by the mysterious Yin Qi. Once the mystical Yin Qi entered the body, under the control of the mystical Yin Qi could quickly raise the mystic grade, and while the mystical Yin Qi was still in the body, it could maintain the stability of the mystic grade. However, the longer the mysterious Yin Qi stayed in the body, the stronger it became. The mysterious Yin Qi would completely devour them, turning them into the mysterious Yin Qi's puppet. Mysterious Yin Qi? The dark forces aren't. Peach said in shock. Chapter 2734. For Yan Zhenfei to be able to become an emissary of the Palace of Darkness, it means that the Palace of Darkness is definitely related to the dark forces. The cup in Yan Xiaoyi's hand was knocked onto the ground by her. Yan Xiaoyi's expression surged with some kind of emotion. Yiqing Luo took a look at her and continued, of course, that bunch of people from the dark forces, what status do they have in the Palace of Seclusion? We have no idea. The only thing that could be concluded was, with the strength of Wolf Saint Art and the others, it was impossible for them to win. They definitely wouldn't be able to build a dark secluded palace in such a short period of time and develop at such a godly speed that it was comparable to the Emperor Palace. Therefore, there were not only dark forces in the Dark Palace, there might be other hidden forces. If the Gloomy Palace is really related to the dark forces, then the existence of the Gloomy Palace will affect the balance of the Nirvana realm. Jun Qingwu looked at Yiqing Luo. I heard that the balance historian had once interfered in this matter, but I'd not expected such a thing to happen. Looks like I'll have to make a trip over to the balance historian's side. This matter must be known to the people of the upper realm. If you have the channels, inform the people in charge as soon as possible to come down and check the situation. Yiqing Luo nodded in agreement. The existence of the dark forces itself is an existence that affects the balance of Nirvana realm. Behind the Nether Palace is obviously a much stronger force than the dark forces. Hearing this, Jun Qingwu's expression became increasingly heavy. She was just about to say something when her gaze fell onto Dmo Xian and revealed a sliver of hesitation. Yiqing Luo understood and gave a smile towards Jun Qingwu. She raised her hand which was intertwined with Dmo Xian's fingers and said softly, "You don't have to worry about Xian, I will take good care of him. You know, the goo poison in his body, An." Jun Qingwu pursed her lips and a trace of emotion appeared on her face. "I know." Yiqing Luo glanced sideways, her eyes gentle. "No matter if Yi is the sacred maiden or not, I will think of a way to let the sacred maiden help Xian cure the goo." She paused and smiled. "As for the rest, I will protect him." After Jun Qingwu returned from the upper realm, she specially looked for her in private. They talked about Dmo Xian's matters. Dmo Xian went to the upper realm. He was indeed going to do something very dangerous. Even though Jun Qingwu didn't say it out loud, she only mentioned it briefly. But Yiqing Luo roughly understood that this matter was related to the divine phoenix profound heart jade in her body. And in the upper realm, Dmo Xian had divided his own strength and created a doppelganger to guard beside Yiqing Luo. As a result, he was almost seriously injured in the upper realm. After that, because his doppelganger was in the Miao tribe's forbidden land, in order to be intimate with her for a short while, he had expended too much energy. When that clone returned to Dmo Xian's body, Dmo Xian's injuries were getting more and more serious. Dmo Xian was now in the lower realm of Nirvana realm. Even if he was injured, he wouldn't be at a disadvantage. However, the situation now was different. Dmo Xian was poisoned by the love worm. Under the influence of the love worm, his thoughts revolved around Yiqing Luo alone. In addition, there was the unknown factor of Gloomy Palace. No one was able to guess whether the Palace of Darkness was targeting Yiqing Luo or the Imperial Palace. Or perhaps, targeting the entire Nirvana realm. But no matter which point he aimed at, to them, it was a potential danger. This is too risky. Jun Qingwu frowned, still unable to be assured. If the Overlord was injured in the Nirvana realm. Chapter 2735. I know what you're worried about. Yiqing Luo smiled as she patted Jun Qingwu's shoulder. If I'm injured, Xian will be in more pain than me, so you can rest assured that I won't let anything happen to me, nor will I let anything happen to Xian. Jun Qingwu still wanted to say something. Suddenly, a deep voice floated over from the side. What are you dawdling about for? There are those few old men around this lass, are you still afraid that something will happen to her? It was Gui Wu. His extremely young face had a serious and calm expression on it. But it didn't look out of place at all. Jun Qingwu was slightly stunned as her beautiful eyes looked towards Gui Wu's direction, as though she was hesitating about what Gui Wu said. Zhou Mo stretched out his hand and hooked it around Gui Wu's neck as he smiled. That's right, Wu and I are here, what are you worried about? Gui Wu frowned as his gaze turned slightly cold as he looked towards Zhou Mo. Zhou Mo was all smiles as he turned Gui Wu's head to the other side, before smiling at Jun Qingwu. Don't be fooled by Wu's unwillingness to help. You can be at ease. As long as this young master stays here, he will definitely stay here as well. Go in peace. Gui Wu's face turned black as he remained silent. This was considered as a tacit agreement. Jun Qingwu looked at Gui Wu for some time. Following that, she looked towards Yiqing Luo, then. I'll trouble you to take care of the Overlord, I'll rush back immediately. Saying that, Jun Qingwu directly got up and left the Miao Stockade village. Zhou Mo was all smiles as he sent Jun Qingwu off. His body moved as he pushed the peach aside and got closer to Yiqing Luo. Between his brows, there was a smile. Little Qing Luo. Zhou Mo called out these 3 words. Suddenly he felt a gush of cold current. His body shook as his gaze followed the direction of the cold current. He met with Dmo Xian's treacherous cold gaze. Zhou Mo's body, which was just about to reach Yiqing Luo's ear, slowly moved backwards. Ah Xian, don't scare him. Yiqing Luo pinched Dmo Xian's palm and glanced sideways at him. What do you want to say? Zhou Mo took a look at Dmo Xian and then looked behind him. Under the headscarf, the two ears kept twitching, trying to eavesdrop. Using a voice that only the two of them could hear, he said, "Little Wildcat listens to you the most, and you know how I feel towards Little Wildcat. When you're free, put in a few good words for me in front of Little Wildcat, how about that?" Yiqing Luo raised her brows. Is young Master Mo begging me? No. Yours truly is making a deal with you. Zhou Mo shook his head solemnly. I'll lend Ao to you. You can use him however you want and for as long as you want. And you, just need to put in a good word for me in front of the Little Wildcat. You're not losing out at all in this deal. It's so worth it. Yiqing Luo tilted her head and shot a glance at Gue Wu before looking at Zhou Mo. This be **starred, selling out his teammates, he couldn't be any more straightforward. But she didn't intend to let Zhou Mo abduct her little cat so easily. Although, she could tell that little cat didn't have no feelings towards Zhou Mo. But little cat's identity and Zhou Mo's identity. If they really wanted to be together, it might be a little difficult. After all, little cat was the beast race's princess. And she had signed a blood pact with her. Before the pact was rescinded, little cat had to stay by her side. If Zhou Mo wanted to be together with little cat, then he had to follow little cat and stay by her side. Zhou Mo was there. Gue Wu would definitely be there. With 2 more helpers. Chapter 2736. But how long could this last for? That would depend on Zhou Mo himself to think it through. Yiqing Luo cleared her throat and raised a finger, replying in a serious manner, how am I worth it? How am I not losing out? I'm losing out big, all right? Anne. You're using my little cat as a transaction? She purposely emphasized the last sentence. Zhou Mo's expression changed instantly, putting on a pitiful expression. Yes, I'm wrong, I shouldn't have said that. I'm begging you all right? Yiqing Luo smiled and nodded satisfactorily, all right. Zhou Mo. Damn. How could such a cute little wild cat have such a shameless owner? Zhou Mo's face turned black as he returned to his seat. Kitty Lee immediately swayed her ears and rushed over, her bright eyes stared at him. Why are you looking for sister? What did you whisper to sister? And you're purposely hiding it from Kitty, don't you want Kitty to hear it? The next few questions were all filled with unhappiness. Looking at the adorable face in front of him, Zhou Mo's heart instantly felt the warmth of spring. He curved his red phoenix eyes and hooked his finger at Kitty Lee. Come closer, I'll tell you secretly. Kitty Lee immediately moved her little head over. A warm kiss landed on the side of her cheek, on the human ear that had materialized. Accompanied by the young man's magnetic and seductive voice, Little Wildcat, are you jealous? Kitty Lee's little body suddenly stiffened. Her cheeks flushed red with a whoosh. Yiqing Luo didn't bother about the lovers' little quarrels. She leaned on Dmo Xian's body as her head rested on his arm, her fingers subconsciously playing with Dmo Xian's fingers. Jun Qingwu's departure didn't attract too much attention. Basically, all the attention was still on Yiqing Luo and Dmo Xian. Yiqing Luo felt that these people could gossip about her for 3 days and 3 nights and they wouldn't even find it annoying. Vaguely, probably listening to what they were saying. Similar to, the young lady who was abandoned by the overlord still dares to show her face in public. Another example was, the abandoned woman who was abandoned by the overlord, provoked another man. Another example was. In any case, it was all the same old words. Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered. Those people probably saw Yiqing Luo's thick skin and didn't have the confidence to refute. He spoke even louder than before on purpose. There were also quite a number of young ladies who deliberately accompanied him, gathered near the first row and shouted at the top of their lungs, belittling Yiqing Luo in various ways in an attempt to attract Dmo Xian's attention and thus dump her in public. Of course, there was a group of people sitting in the first row. From the beginning to the end, he was just talking and laughing to himself. He treated the group of people who were discussing as if they were air. This kind of atmosphere lasted until a loud welcoming sound rang out. The emissary of the Palace of Darkness has arrived, the representative of the Sun family has arrived. The words gloomy Palace of Darkness instantly caused most of the factions to stand up and look over. At the entrance of the square, Yan Zhenfei was escorted to her seat by everyone. The faces of the waitresses and waitresses were filled with flattering smiles. There were even two old men dressed in the Miao tribe's elders' attire. They cupped their hands and stepped forward. They had gained a lot of face for the gloomy palace. Currently, all the powerhouses wanted to collaborate with the gloomy palace and even sent their own heirs over to be disciples. Chapter 2737. With the gloomy palace's envoy taking the lead. Sun Yutong and Mei, who walked in after that, appeared extremely cold and quiet beside the two of them. On the other side, on seeing Yan Zhenfei walking in, Yan Xiaoyi's originally relaxed emotions suddenly congealed. Her eyes swiftly shot towards Yan Zhenfei. Her eyes seemed to be filled with a raging storm. Xiao Jin's hand was placed on Yan Xiaoyi's shoulder. His broad and warm palm, slowly, soothed the agitation in Yan Xiaoyi's heart. Yiqing Luo laid lazily in Dmo Xian's arms, changing into a more comfortable position as she squinted her eyes, looking at that veiled lady. The corners of her lips, bit by bit, curled into a cold arc. Looked like those who were seeking their own humiliation were about to form a team again. Just like what Yiqing Luo had guessed. Yan Zhenfei was respectfully welcomed by two elders, as she came to the first row of the public square's guest seating. The Miao tribe had divided the seating into two rows, left and right. The two rows on the left and right, each row could seat about 20 people. Yiqing Luo and the rest sat on the first row on the right. The elder led Yan Zhenfei, Mei and the rest towards the first row on the left. But, when Yan Zhenfei was turning to the left, she suddenly stopped in her tracks. "Madam Envoy, what's the matter?" Second Elder Miao also stopped in his tracks, as he asked in a flattering manner. Yan Zhenfei's gaze swept across, as she looked towards the seats on the right, in the direction of that row of 10 over people. Her gaze stopped on Yan Xiaoyi for several breaths, and went past her, stopping on Yiqing Luo. Yan Zhenfei's eyes narrowed, as an icy cold glint shot out. Second Elder Miao was an intelligent person, as he followed Yan Zhenfei's gaze, as he understood something, as he smiled apologetically. "I believe Madam Envoy has heard of those rumors regarding Miss Yi. Don't put her in your heart. The reason why she can sit there is only because her relationship with Master Gui Wu is better." Yan Zhenfei's gaze turned chillier by the minute. When Sun Yutong, who was beside him, saw this, she revealed a disdainful smile. She glanced at the seats on the right and said, "I say, Second Elder Miao, the rules of your Miao tribe are really laughable." Mei also chimed in from the side. Viciousness faintly surfaced on her beautiful face. Any Tom, Dick, or Harry can rely on their connections to sit in the first row. Now, they even arranged our big sister Yan to sit next to them. Second Elder Miao feels that Big Sister Yan's status is equal to those pieces of trash. When he spat out the last 4 words, Plum released her aura without anyone noticing. Second Elder Miao broke out in a cold sweat. Fourth Elder Miao wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and spoke with some hesitation. "The Great Messenger has a distinguished status. It is the Miao tribe's honor to be able to participate in the most important sacred maiden selection ceremony of the Miao tribe. How can those few students compare to you?" Fourth Elder Miao first praised him before continuing, "But Grandmaster Gui Wu. He is, after all, the most respected grandmaster in the Nirvana realm. He is also a prophecy expert who can determine a profound practitioner's life. In this way, the Miao tribe feels that, our big sister Yen, can't be compared to that Grandmaster Guiwu. You value the so-called Grandmaster Guiwu more? Mei directly interrupted Fourth Elder Miao's words, as her voice was chilly. Fourth Elder Miao's face immediately turned pale, as he hurriedly cupped his hands in apology. No, 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 I absolutely don't mean it in this way, but. Chapter 2738. Then, Second Elder Miao moved closer to Yan Zhenfei and smiled flatteringly. This brother of mine is stupid. Lord Envoy, please be magnanimous and don't bother with him. Pausing for a moment, he looked at the seats on the right and asked in a low voice, we are stupid. According to Sir Messenger, what should we do? Yan Zhenfei maintained her unfathomable posture and raised her head high. It was as if even speaking to the elders of the Miao tribe was beneath her status. Second Elder Miao's expression was slightly awkward. However, he still had to maintain the smile on his face. Sun Yutong received Yan Zhenfei's gaze and said arrogantly, no wonder your Miao tribe is still a small faction even after hundreds of years. Was there a need to ask Sister Yen such a simple question? I'll be frank. These people, since they don't have the qualifications to sit on this seat, just chase them away. Second Elder Miao's face darkened. His white brows furrowed as he stared at the seats on the right for a moment. Yan Zhenfei's careless voice drifted into his ears. What? Does Second Elder Miao think that little sister Sun's request is too much? Second Elder Miao felt a chill run down his spine, and he immediately straightened his back. He hurriedly shook his head with a smile, it's not too much. Miss Sun is right. Those who don't have the qualifications indeed don't deserve to sit in the first row. This is against the rules. After saying that, he glanced at Fourth Elder Miao, warning him to speak less and act cautiously. Following that, he cupped his hands in greeting towards Yan Zhenfei and headed towards the first row, towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo and the others naturally noticed the extravagance on this side. Seeing that Yan Zhenfei had not taken her seat for a long time. Many people looked at them from time to time. How could they not understand? Yan Zhenfei was putting on a show, wanting to cause trouble. As expected. Not long after, they saw Second Elder Miao walking toward them with a gloomy expression. Second Elder Miao paused for a moment by Guiwu's side. After that, he carefully sized up Guiwu's expression. Guiwu did not even raise his eyelids, and only held a cup of wine, minding his own business and drinking. His expressionless face made it impossible to tell what he was thinking. Second Elder Miao asked himself if he could climb to the position of Elder Miao. Naturally, he had his own way of judging people. However, when he looked at Guiwu, not only could he not see anything. On the contrary, he was suppressed by the aura of the ghost martial artist to the point that he broke out in cold sweat and his legs went weak. Clearly, Guiwu had not even taken a glance at him. Second Elder Miao decisively dispelled the idea of discussing with Guiwu as he braced himself and walked towards Yiqing Luo. You, and you. Second Elder Miao pointed towards the direction of Yiqing Luo and the rest. In a row, other than Guiwu and Zhou Mo, the rest were all pointed out. He waved his hand, and his white robe fluttered in the wind. All of you, sit at the back. After saying those words, Second Elder Miao immediately looked towards Guiwu. Guiwu was still minding his own business, drinking wine. He secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Guiwu did not care about the life and death of these people. From the looks of it, it should be this group of students who were shamelessly trying to intimidate Guiwu. Master Guiwu couldn't be bothered to bicker with them, and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to them. Therefore, he didn't say anything to explain that he wasn't familiar with these students at all. That's right. It must be so. Otherwise, why would this group of people sit together with Gue Wu and the rest? Chapter 2739. Thinking in this way, Second Elder Miao wasn't worried that because he chased these students away, he would offend Ghost Martial Artist. He felt even more confident now. He put on a straight face. You bunch of students, do you know the rules or not? Is this a place where you can sit? He raised his head and looked at the seats at the back as he casually pointed to the last few rows. All of you sit over there. However, after he said that, the people on the seats only shot him a faint glance. Following that, they shifted their gazes away, continuing the conversation earlier. No one bothered about Second Elder Miao's words. This was simply a blatant slap on Second Elder Miao's face. Second Elder Miao's expression instantly sunk as he fiercely slammed his palm onto the table. This elder will not haggle with you on account of your young age and lack of upbringing. Now, scram over there for this elder, otherwise. Don't blame this elder for not showing any mercy. Second Elder Miao's slap was extremely forceful. On the long table in front of Yiqing Luo and the others, those delicacies, bowls and chopsticks, all gave off a clashing sound from the vibrations. This commotion. It also made the guests who had just entered their seats, to look over curiously. The entire Miao clan's public square was in silence. Everyone's gazes, all gathered towards the direction of the first row. The people who were seated on the first row, still hadn't moved. Until Second Elder Miao's remaining power had dissipated. Yiqing Luo and the others didn't even bother to take a look at Second Elder Miao. Second Elder Miao's eyes were hazy, as anger surged up, and just as he was about to slam the table and scold angrily, suddenly, he saw that red-robed young lady, raising a fair slender wrist, displaying a shut-up gesture. Inexplicably, Second Elder Miao's words were instantly stuck in his throat. The young lady was still leaning lazily in that half-masked man's arms, as her brows were filled with ridicule, upbringing? With Second Elder Miao's current quality, are you even fit to talk about upbringing with me? The young lady's voice was melodious, extremely pleasing to the ear. Like pearls falling onto a plate, into one's heart. Elder Miao widened her eyes and her face turned ashen. What did you say? I didn't expect that Second Elder Miao is not only of low quality, even his ears are not that good. Yiqing Luo lazily propped up her waist against Dmo Xian's tall frame. His every move was filled with a lazy aura. Compared to family education, I feel that us students are much more noble than you. She smiled sweetly. At least, we will not do such a disrespectful action and say such disrespectful words at such a sacred moment to the Miao tribe. He was mocked by a junior in front of so many guests. If Second Elder Miao didn't act up, in the future, he would probably be called a paper tiger. Second Elder Miao's entire body instantly emitted a terrifying aura as her pair of sinister eyes stared angrily at Yiqing Luo as she clenched her teeth. What a sharp-tongued lass. You also know that this is the Miao tribe. How dare you disregard the rules in this elder's territory? My Miao stockade village will not tolerate you lot. Saying that, he howled furiously, men. Chase these people who are disrupting the Miao tribe's sacred maiden selection out of the Miao tribe. Very quickly, a large group of guards swarmed up. No one around them spoke up to plead for him. Everyone could see that. Second Elder Miao's actions were instigated by the secluded palace. Who was willing to offend the secluded palace for this bunch of Heavenly Academy students? Chapter 2740. Naturally, everyone had the attitude of watching a good show. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. Taking a look at the guards who surrounded her, her lips curled into a cold smile. This is how Second Elder Miao treats guests. This elder doesn't think that anyone who disrupts our Miao tribe's sacred maiden selection ceremony is a guest. You address yourself as a guest but you don't have any manners, so why should this elder treat you with respect? Second Elder Miao gave a cold laugh as his brows turned cold. Do it. The guards received the order and pounced towards Yiqing Luo and the others. Dmo Xian hugged Yiqing Luo's slender waist tightly as his figure retreated backwards. Like a ghost, he broke away from the guards' encirclement. Yiqing Luo's gaze went past the crowd and landed on the middle of the first row, on Yan Zhenfei, whose brows were raised with a smile in her eyes. As though sensing Yiqing Luo's gaze, Yan Zhenfei shifted her gaze. Coincidentally, it met Yiqing Luo's eyes. She was extremely complacent, as though she was ridiculing Yiqing Luo. "Fight with me? Are you qualified?" Yiqing Luo wasn't angry, instead her charming eyes curved as her pink lips moved slightly, spitting out two words soundlessly: "Scum, scum." Successfully, it made Yan Zhenfei's face turn black. Yiqing Luo's mood was joyous as she leisurely shifted her gaze away, looking towards Yan Xiaoyi and the others who were surrounded by the guards. Yiqing Luo pinched Dmo Xian's hand. Originally, she didn't want to create trouble at Yi's sacred maiden ceremony. But trouble came knocking on her door. She could only take action. She was preparing to bring Dmo Xian along to take action directly, using violence to curb violence. Suddenly, a clear and dignified voice shouted angrily, "Stop!" This angry shout. It was extremely dignified. It made those guards subconsciously stop what they were doing. Everyone's gazes turned over. They saw a lady dressed in blue Miao tribe clothing, walking over slowly. The Miao tribe accessories on her gave off a jingle sound as she walked. Second Elder Miao's gaze, when it met the lady, his expression turned extremely ugly. "Miao Yi, what are you doing out here?" The woman was Miao Yi. There was a cold smile in Miao Yi's eyes. Her clearly young face was strangely mature and stern. "Second Elder Miao wants to chase away the guest that I invited. If I don't come, who knows what Second Elder Miao will do to my guest." She walked to Yan Xiaoyi and the rest. Her petite body stood in front of them. His gaze swept across the surrounding guards bit by bit. "Go down." Her voice was calm, but it was filled with authority. The guards immediately looked at Second Elder Miao. These guards knew about Miao Yi's status in the Miao tribe. If it was before, the guards did not care about Miao Yi at all. But now, the Miao tribe leader and young lady Miao had done such a shameful thing to the Miao tribe. In the entire Miao tribe, Miao Yi was the only direct descendant of the Miao tribe. Moreover, Miao Yi had participated in the Miao tribe's Holy Maiden selection and was one of the candidates. They naturally did not dare to be rude to Miao Yi. Otherwise, it would be disrespectful to the Holy Maiden and the ancient Gu worm. But, Second Elder Miao was the elder of the Miao tribe. He was below 1 and above 10,000. Both sides were people that their guards could not afford to offend. For a moment, the guards did not know who they should listen to. Second Elder Miao was obviously aware of this point. Chapter 2741. Second Elder Miao's face darkened as he warned in a low voice, "Miao Yi, you are not a descendant recognized by the Miao family. You were allowed to participate in the Holy Maiden selection only because you have the direct bloodline of the Miao tribe leader. If you cannot pass the Holy Maiden selection, do you know the consequences? I am not a descendant recognized by the Miao family." Then, that Miao Rongrong who had an illicit affair with her father, is she a descendant recognized by the Miao family? Miao Yi laughed coldly as she retorted rudely. Second Elder Miao's expression turned extremely ugly as he scolded her sternly, "Miao Yi. What nonsense are you spouting? Second Elder Miao, you know very well whether I am spouting nonsense or not." Miao Yi smiled nonchalantly. Second Elder Miao did not expect this. This little girl who usually looked so obedient and harmless. How could she become so sharp-tongued? Could it be that her usual obedience was just an illusion? That her usual obedience was just an illusion? And now, was this her true face? This thought sent chills down Second Elder Miao's spine. If it was really, as he had guessed, then this Miao-yi was definitely not a good person. His white brows furrowed, as if something was strangling his heart. He was about to speak when Miao-yi continued with a smile, "Second Elder Miao, allow me to remind you that from the day Miao-yi Xiong and Miao Rongrong did that illicit affair and humiliated the Miao tribe, they were no longer part of the Miao tribe. And I, Miao-yi, am the true eldest miss of the Miao tribe." Every word was forceful and sonorous. It was as if she was swearing something. Second Elder Miao's face alternated between green and white. His ruthless eyes stared straight at Miao-yi, as if he wanted to see through this girl's soul. Miao-yi let him look at her. The corners of her mouth curled up into a smile. She was still so confident and in high spirits. "Second Elder Miao, these are the guests that I invited. I want them to sit here. Do you have any objections?" Second Elder Miao stepped back, his gaze darting towards Yan Zhenfei. "Miao-yi. Eldest miss, this is not the time for you to be willful." He knew that what Miao-yi said was the truth. Miao-yi was indeed the direct bloodline of the Miao tribe leader. Even if Miao Rongrong was still here, Miao-yi was the real young mistress of the Miao clan. He softened his tone and discussed, "Eldest miss, over there, is the emissary of the Palace of Darkness. You also know that the Palace of Darkness now represents the entire Nirvana realm. If we offend the emissary of the Palace of Darkness, the Miaogu family will be in trouble." Miao-yi scoffed at Second Elder Miao's explanation. Second Elder Miao patiently looked at Yiqing Luo. "Miss Yi, your eldest young miss friend, so you should consider for her sake. It's just a messenger from the Palace of Darkness, yet Second Elder Miao is so humble. Those who don't know, would think that your Miao tribe has fallen to the point where you have to curry favor with everyone you see." Yiqing Luo's fingers twirled a lock of hair as she gave a low laugh. She did not hide her disdain for Second Elder Miao at all. "You!" Second Elder Miao glared furiously, "Don't you dare insult the Miaogu clan." Yiqing Luo raised her brows. As for this Second Elder Miao, she didn't know how to evaluate it. Chapter 2742. For the Miaogu family. He, the dignified Elder Miao, was willing to lower his head. But, in order to curry favor with others, he treated the invited guests rudely. Yiqing Luo despised this kind of behavior. She leaned her little head on Emo Xian's arm and yawned lazily. She then continued, "Second Elder Miao, if Miss Yan wishes to sit in our row, then let her come over to discuss it herself. Otherwise, there's no need for discussion." After saying that, she raised her hand and casually swept it. A surge of invisible profound energy instantly dispersed. In the air, a wave of air rolled down like the waves of the sea. Those guards who were standing there in a daze opened up a path. Yiqing Luo and the rest returned to their original seats. The delicacies, bowls, and chopsticks on the long table were all neatly returned to their original positions. This scene caused countless people in the surroundings to be dumbfounded. Especially Second Elder Miao, who was the nearest. At the moment when Yiqing Luo made her move, her footsteps seemed to be floating as she retreated a few steps back. This power. It was too shocking. This was the infamous Yi Luo of the Northern Wave continent. His power was actually so powerful? Earth Profound 9th grade. Gue Wu, who was sitting by the side, put down his wine cup. He raised his eyes expressionlessly, calmly without any fluctuations. The moment she released her profound chi, her profound grade was Earth Profound 9th grade, about to step into Sky Profound realm. Earth Profound 9th grade? She. The Overlord's abandoned wife is an Earth Profound 9th grade cultivator? And very likely, possibly, about to step into Sky Profound realm? This sentence seemed to have stirred up 1,000 waves. Caused countless people to refute in disbelief. Earth Profound 9th grade? How old was Yi Luo? He looked at most 14 or 15 years old. A 14 or 15-year-old Earth-profound 9th grade cultivator? And to step into Sky-profound realm? Even the Overlord couldn't do it. Was Master Gue Wu speaking up for Yi Luo? Does Ah Wu look like someone who would joke? Zhou Mo hooked his arm around Gue Wu's shoulder as a bewitching smile appeared on his face. Using his profound energy, he said, "My family's Ah Wu is someone you guys call the Grandmaster of the Golden Prophecy. Do you guys not believe his words?" The astonishment in everyone's eyes deepened. They indeed couldn't believe it, and were even more unwilling to believe it. However, young Master Mo was right. Master Gue Wu wasn't someone who would joke around. Master Gue Wu's golden prophecy had never been off the mark. How could the Ghost Martial Grandmaster casually talk about Yi Luo's profound rank? Furthermore, earlier when Yi Qing Luo casually waved her sleeves. It was the method that took away dozens of Miao tribe guards. No matter how one looked at it, it was absolutely not something that an ordinary profound practitioner could accomplish. Those people who were discussing about Yi Qing Luo being an abandoned woman etc. At this moment, all of them shut their mouths. The entire square was deathly silent. Yi Qing Luo expressed that in this era where the strong were revered, there was nothing more effective than showing off one's strength and using violence to curb violence. Coupled with Gue Wu's testimony, those people, no matter how much they hated her, had no choice but to obediently tuck their tails between their legs. Yi Qing Luo's move. Second Elder Miao was also stunned. Earth-profound 9th grade cultivators were terrifying. At 14 or 15 years old, their profound rank had already reached Earth-profound 9th grade. Those who were about to step into Sky-profound realm were even more terrifying. If Yi Luo was allowed to continue growing like this in the future, wouldn't it mean that he would really surpass the Overlord? Second Elder Miao cautiously turned his eyes sideways as he looked towards Yan Zhenfei's direction. Chapter 2743. At this moment, a coquettish laughter came from the side. Second Elder Miao's position in the Miao tribe is just so. Even a little junior can order you around. Then, a coquettish figure walked over. She had a curvaceous figure and a waist as slender as a willow snake. That young and tender face was extremely beautiful, and her eyes were full of seductive charm. It seems that our Lord Messenger has overestimated Second Elder Miao. Second Elder Miao's body stiffened. He looked at that woman with an ugly expression. "Miss Mei, this is the eldest miss of the Miao tribe, a candidate for the Holy Maiden. If she can become the Holy Maiden, her position will naturally be higher than mine." Mei raised her eyebrows and smiled so seductively that everyone's eyes were glued to her. But now, she is not the Holy Maiden, is she? As soon as Mei finished speaking, Miao Yi's gaze fell on Mei. Miao Yi's lips curled into a distant but polite smile. "Even if I am not the Holy Maiden of the Miao tribe now, I am still much nobler than a dog like you. After all, I am the eldest miss of the Miao tribe." "You." Mei was enraged by Miao Yi's rebuke. "You dare to scold me?" She raised her hand and slapped Miao Yi's face. Mei was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, Miao Yi did not even have time to react. He could only feel a sharp gust of cold wind falling on his face. Pa! A crisp sound of a slap. Everyone could only see an afterimage flying backward at high speed. Soon after, it heavily smashed into a drum on a high platform not far away. Rumble, the wooden high platform and drum shattered with a loud bang. Dust and smoke billowed everywhere. Wood splinters flew everywhere. That figure fell on the broken wood, crying out in pain. Around them, sounds of people sucking in cold breaths sounded out. Good hit. A little bitch like her who doesn't have any ability but still wants to use her status to speak rudely deserves to be hit. Sun Yutong, Yan Zhenfei and the other guards of the Palace of Darkness also walked over. As soon as Sun Yutong's voice fell, he then heard the sweet laughter of a young girl. Miss Sun is right, he does deserve to be beaten. This voice, Sun Yutong's expression froze. His eyes quickly looked in the direction of the laughter. After the profound chi dispersed, a young girl dressed in red looked at her with a light smile. And standing behind that girl was none other than Miao Yi, who had been slapped by Plum just now. No, wasn't Miao Yi sent flying by Mei's slap? What about Mei? After the crowd saw Miao Yi behind Yiqing Luo, he suddenly seemed to understand something. One by one, they quickly turned their eyes to the collapsed high platform and the beating of the drums. When the dust settled, the figure lying on the ground was revealed, trembling non-stop. Her thin and elegant dress hung loosely on her body. It revealed a red undergarment embroidered with peonies. Her fair skin had an obvious curve to it, big and soft. Together with the beauty of the peony, it makes one's blood swell. The eyes of many men in the crowd almost emitted the light of wolves. The ladies' attention naturally wouldn't be on these. They clearly saw that on Mei's delicate and beautiful face, there was a bright red palm print, which was obvious. Yiqing Luo raised her hand lazily, her slender fingers gently stroked her palm. Chapter 2744. You. How could you? Sun Yutong was startled. Thinking back to what she had just said, her face turned deathly pale. She hurriedly looked in Mei's direction and eagerly tried to explain, Sister Mei, I'm not talking about you. It's her, what's the point of explaining all that to her? Yan Zhenfei tugged on Sun Yutong's arm in exasperation. Being humiliated like this in front of so many people, you've really thrown this envoy's face away. Saying that, she didn't even bother to take a look at Plum as she walked towards Yiqing Luo directly. Yan Zhenfei's steps were slow. In everyone's eyes, it felt like every step Yan Zhenfei took was like an invisible mountain pressing down on her. It was so heavy that they couldn't breathe. The surrounding guests' reverence towards Yan Zhenfei and the Palace of Gloomy Darkness instantly surged. As expected of the emissary of the Abyss Palace, his aura was so oppressive. However, on Yiqing Luo's face, there wasn't a single ripple of emotions. Her eyes were calm, and the corners of her mouth curled up into a faint smile. Yan Zhenfei stopped in front of Yiqing Luo. Under the veil, the pair of eyes seemed as though they were dipped in poison as they stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Miss Yi, under my eyes, you dare to hit my people, don't tell me. Don't put my Palace of Darkness in your eyes? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as the ridicule in her eyes deepened. Sure enough, it was as she had guessed. Yan Zhenfei had no real power in Gloomy Palace. She had to have a legitimate reason to make a move. A reason related to the Palace of Darkness. Otherwise, if Yan Zhenfei casually made a move on her, she would definitely die. The Palace of Darkness probably wouldn't stand up for him. Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she scoffed, secluded palace? She chuckled and murmured those 3 words. Soon after, she raised her charming eyes, her face still hung with her evil smile. That's right. I really don't care about the Palace of Darkness. And I don't care about you, the so-called messenger of the Palace of Darkness. Her voice was soft. Her tone was also very gentle. He did not have any extra emotions. However, the crowd could feel that, it was a feeling of extreme disdain. Yan Zhenfei's eyes instantly turned black. She gritted her teeth and said, Yi Luo, do you still think that you have His Majesty to back you up? Let me tell you, in less than half a month, the secluded Darkness Palace will become the #1 palace in the Nirvana realm. When Di Zun was mentioned, Yan Zhenfei's eyes flashed. Her vision went past Yiqing Luo and fell onto the tall and handsome man behind Yiqing Luo, who looked like a deity. The man was wearing a mask that covered half of his face. But in terms of his aura, he was definitely not an ordinary person. Even though the man was just standing there, he exuded an aura of a monarch descending from the heavens. Compared to the people he met in the Abyss Palace, he was much stronger. This person looked even more mesmerizing. Such an outstanding man. How could I become the subject of that slut Yi Luo? Yan Zhenfei suppressed the jealousy in her eyes and continued maliciously, "Oh, right. I forgot that you still have the Castle Master of Death God Castle as your backing." Yan Zhenfei deliberately raised her voice. So much so that the guests who were standing nearer to them all heard what Yan Zhenfei said. Immediately, it exploded into an uproar. Death God Castle Master? Zhu Wuxian? That unapproachable, mysterious and unfathomable Zhu Wuxian? That iceberg-like man, was Yi Luo's backing? Chapter 2745. Which meant to say, Yi Luo not only seduced the overlord, he also hooked up with this mysterious noble man, and even offended Death God Castle's castle lord? Every single one of them were characters who could shake the entire Nirvana realm if they stood out. All of them had been hooked up by Yi Luo. This Yi Luo, what ability did he have? To be able to attract so many noble and outstanding men? Everyone's gazes towards Yi Qing Luo were filled with shock and disdain. Yan Zhenfei gave a satisfied cold smile. After her face was covered by the veil, only her two eyes were revealed and the emotions it revealed were especially obvious. Yan Zhenfei's gaze fell onto Dmo Xian, that young master. You probably don't know what kind of person the lady in front of you is. Before you, she had climbed onto the overlord's bed. Moreover, to be able to make Death God Castle's castle lord personally say, "She's mine." Now, she's so intimate with you. She paused as her beautiful eyes curved and her voice revealed a trace of bewitchment. She got close to you, just to cling onto your power. Don't be used by her. Yan Zhenfei's words made the surrounding guests even more heated discussions. Especially those ladies who were jealous of Yi Luo for having 3 outstanding men. The words that came out of their mouths were simply unbearable to listen to. All of them were fanning the flames. Just to infuriate the new sugar daddy that Yi Luo had hooked up with. Then to see Yi Luo being abandoned by the sugar daddy in front of everyone. But the crowd's discussions and Yan Zhenfei's intentional bewitchment words didn't make the main character in their mouths change her expression at all. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes as her smile was very shallow, not reaching her eyes. Following that, her pink lips moved slightly as she spat out a few words, Yan, Zhen. Before she could finish her words, Yan Zhenfei's complacent smile instantly dissipated as her expression turned sinister. "Shut up. You shut up for this envoy." The clamorous discussions stopped abruptly. No one understood why the envoy from Gloomy Palace suddenly flew into a rage. Yan Zhenfei's chest was heaving up and down, apparently she was extremely angry. Yi Qing Luo gave a melodious chuckle. "Miss Yan, Secluded Darkness Palace has been manipulating public opinion recently, creating numerous rumors about me, splashing dirty water on me. Now, he even did not hesitate to smear my name at the Miao Tribe's Saintess selection ceremony. I'm kind-hearted and don't intend to bicker with you. However, my character is that I can't tolerate anyone bullying the people I care about." There was a hint of laughter in her voice. His tone was also light and indifferent, without the slightest fluctuation. "This is my fiancé. Miss Yan is smearing my feelings for my fiancé. This really makes me very curious about Miss Yan's goal." Yi Qing Luo paused for a moment, as the corners of her eyes rose into a narrow arc. Could it be that Miss Yan has taken a fancy to my fiancé, and is trying to sow discord between me and my fiancé, so as to take the opportunity to rise up? Yan Zhenfei's hands under her sleeves clenched into fists. The surrounding guests were once again in an uproar because of Yi Qing Luo's words. What did Yi Luo mean? Her dark deeds were intentionally led by secluded Darkness Palace. A person's heart was easily swayed by different opinions. At this moment, Yi Luo's words made them start to guess if Yi Luo's words were true or not. Sun Yutong saw the situation going out of control once again, as she anxiously looked towards Yan Zhenfei. Chapter 2746. Sun Yutong was anxious as she clenched her teeth. Yi Luo, what you said is ridiculous. Would the Palace of Darkness target you, to manipulate the rumors and public opinion? Who do you think you are? Immediately following that, she quickly continued, furthermore, why are there so many rumors surrounding you? Isn't it because there's a problem with your character? It's a fact that you've been abandoned by the Overlord. It's also a fact that you've brought your so-called fiancé here to show off. You've just been abandoned by the Overlord for a short period of time and you've already found your next family, even calling him fiancé. If this isn't fickle, then what is? Sun Yutong's words made the surrounding guests nod their heads in agreement. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a faint cold arc, as though she was smiling but it didn't reach her eyes. Her brows were filled with a deathly stillness. That's right, I'm also very curious. Why would the Palace of Darkness, which sounds like it's going to boast to the heavens, purposely target a weak lady like me, using such a despicable method? Yiqing Luo touched her chin in puzzlement as she raised her eyes to look at Yan Zhenfei. Miss Yan, what do you think? That word, Yan, had just left her mouth. Yan Zhenfei's body suddenly stiffened. After Yiqing Luo's words ended, Yan Zhenfei's face under the veil was covered in a haze. Damned slut! Yi Luo thought that she had caught hold of her weakness. So she could throw her weight around in front of her? And even tried to use this secret to threaten her? Ha! She would absolutely not give Yi Luo a chance to reveal the secret. The intense murderous intent disappeared in a flash. Yan Zhenfei's brows had already regained her arrogance. Before today, I don't even know you. The Palace of Darkness will absolutely not do such a disgraceful thing. Yiqing Luo burst out laughing when she heard that, then. Miss Yan, can you be sure that the people around you won't make use of the Palace of Darkness to manipulate the public opinion? As she was laughing, her gaze fell onto Mei, who was standing up in a sorry state, frantically tidying herself up. Yan Zhenfei's gaze also looked over. Instantly, her face turned slightly pale. Her tightly clenched fingers uncontrollably tightened. Yiqing Luo continued to smile. After all, it's not the first time that Miss Yan has been treated as a puppet, isn't it? Yan Zhenfei trembled with anger. Their conversation wasn't soft at all. The surrounding guests saw that Yan Zhenfei didn't refute Yiqing Luo's guess. All of them couldn't help but look at Mei. They were not fools. Even if it was easy to waver, it wasn't without reason. After all, Yiqing Luo had been abandoned by the Overlord. The news spread like wildfire in the Northern Waves continent for almost a month. If it wasn't for someone deliberately guiding him from the back, this matter would definitely not be a hot topic until now. Today, Yan Zhenfei's tacit agreement had verified Yiqing Luo's words. The rumors and public opinion were related to the Palace of Gloomy Darkness. Yiqing Luo continued to smile. As for whether there's any problem with my character, this isn't something for Miss Yan and Miss Sun to worry about. Sun Yutong's face paled a few shades at this moment. After meeting Yiqing Luo's gaze, instinctively, she hid behind Yan Zhenfei. Yan Zhenfei clenched her fists tightly as her face under the veil turned green and red. Yi Luo, you're really great. Chapter 2747. Bang! Yiqing Luo suddenly moved and her figure was already standing in front of Yan Zhenfei. She grabbed Yan Zhenfei's wrist. It was extremely fast. It was so fast that no one could see it clearly. Yiqing Luo had already pulled Yan Zhenfei and pressed her behind, onto the flag pole which represented the Miao tribe. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with malice as she lowered her body, as though she would pinch Yan Zhenfei to death in the next moment. Yan Zhenfei, you'd better dispel this thought. If you dare to touch them, your good days will come to an end. Yiqing Luo's voice was very low. Only the two of them could hear it. Yan Zhenfei was frightened, her lips trembling. She didn't want to admit her fear of Yi Luo. But he couldn't deny it. Just now, Yi Luo's voice sounded like an Asura from the depths of hell. At this moment, Yan Zhenfei was stunned. In her mind, Yiqing Luo's devastatingly beautiful face appeared, facing her, revealing a bloodthirsty cold smile. Yan Zhenfei's heart trembled. His body could not stop trembling. Ever since he became the emissary of the Palace of Darkness. It had been a long time since Yan Zhenfei had felt so helpless and terrified. She pursed her lips unwillingly as her back leaned against that flag pole which wasn't considered thick. Being suppressed by Yiqing Luo, that flag pole was almost embedded into her flesh. It hurt against her back. Do you understand? That enchanting voice drifted into his ears again. Yan Zhenfei's lips trembled and she was about to agree. Out of the corner of his eye, he glanced around at the countless onlookers. He swallowed the words of begging for mercy that were at the tip of his tongue. Originally, Yan Zhenfei was thinking of borrowing the power of public opinion, using her identity as the Palace of Darkness's envoy, to give Yiqing Luo a show of strength. At least he could take revenge for the grievances he had suffered in Yiqing Luo's hands. All the guests here wanted to build a relationship with her Palace of Darkness. As long as she asked. These guests would definitely make Yi Luo and the others feel suffocated. In the end, he retreated in defeat. Everything had clearly been set up. But now, she was stuck between a rock and a hard place. He couldn't just beg for mercy like this. He could not allow himself to be overwhelmed by Yi Luo's aura. She was the emissary of the Palace of Gloom. She represented the image of the gloomy palace. If she retreated, Umbra Palace would become a laughing stock. The Palace of Darkness would definitely not let her off so easily. Thinking of such a harem, Yan Zhenfei held her breath. No matter how afraid she was of Yi Luo, she couldn't compare to the terror of Gloomy Palace. She suppressed the fear in her heart and tried her best to look calm. Yi Luo, do you care about those people that much? Don't tell me you don't know. That group of people are the dogs raised by the main character, Yiqing Luo? Knight, Qing, Luo. This name was not unfamiliar to the surrounding guests. After all, it was related to Yiqing Luo's deeds. The news had already spread throughout the streets and alleys of the Nirvana realm. Everyone was in an uproar. What did this have to do with Yiqing Luo? Following that, he heard Yan Zhenfei's ridiculing voice ringing, "Have you imitated Yiqing Luo for too long that you're too immersed in your character? Now even Yiqing Luo's dog also wants to learn from Yiqing Luo, protecting it." Pa! A slap landed on Yan Zhenfei's face. Yiqing Luo used brute force as the expression on her face was cold and her eyes were filled with a chilly glint. Only scum like you, who likes to be a dog, will think that everyone you meet is a dog. Chapter 2748. The people she cared about were her reverse scale. She couldn't tolerate anyone saying a bad word about her. Especially. She was comparing her brother to a dog. This slap was thrown with extreme force. Even though Yan Zhenfei was wearing a veil, it wasn't difficult to tell that her face was already red and swollen. You! How dare you! Sun Yutong's eyes widened in shock when she saw that. Someone actually dared to hit Sister Yan? Sister Yan was the envoy of Abyss Palace. That Yi Luo, wasn't he afraid of Abyss Palace's revenge? How dare I? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she looked at her with an evil smile. This is called being presumptuous? You haven't seen anything more presumptuous. Sun Yutong was frightened by her gaze as she retreated a few steps. Just at this moment, not knowing when, Mei had already dashed over and pounced towards Yiqing Luo with all her might. She didn't care about her messy appearance as her entire body pounced towards Yiqing Luo, who was dragging Yan Zhenfei. Following that, Mei turned her head around and shouted sternly at the row of Abyss Palace's guards behind her, "What are you all still in a daze for? Seeing your own master being humiliated by a little slut, yet you still don't know how to take action?" As she was saying that, Mei used her body to separate the distance between Yan Zhenfei and Yiqing Luo. Following that, she exerted strength as both her hands wrapped tightly towards Yiqing Luo. Yan Zhenfei took the opportunity to take a step back, retreating out of Yiqing Luo's attack range. Her body swayed unsteadily. Sun Yutong immediately went up to support her as she asked softly, "Sister Yan, are you all right?" Yan Zhenfei grabbed Sun Yutong's arm tightly as she stabilized her body. Her eyes were gloomy as she didn't take a look at Sun Yutong but stared straight at Yiqing Luo's direction. Mei's sudden attack was out of Yiqing Luo's expectations. Yiqing Luo didn't manage to react in time as she was pounced on by Mei's arms. His entire person was pushed back a few steps. Yiqing Luo frowned as she raised her hand and locked onto Mei's wrist, trying to pull her away. Mei clenched her teeth tightly as she increased her strength. She continued to shout sternly, "Envoy Yan, quick! Order your guards to attack." Yan Zhenfei was startled. She instinctively looked towards the dozen or so guards wearing black robes with the word, "You," embroidered on their chests and sleeves. She pursed her lips and her eyes flickered. She seemed to understand Plum's meaning and became determined. "You guys, why don't you go and bring that little bitch who doesn't respect the Palace of Darkness out?" The dozen guards shifted their gazes to Yan Zhenfei in unison. Yan Zhenfei's face was stiff as she sneered. "If Gloomy Palace's reputation is damaged, can you bear the responsibility?" The dozen or so guards trembled when they heard this. Following that, he speedily headed towards Yiqing Luo's direction. A smug sneer flashed across Yan Zhenfei's eyes. The minute those guards struck, Yiqing Luo felt the surrounding air forming an extremely strong pressure. Her expression changed slightly. Just as he was about to dodge the incoming pressure, a voice suddenly rang out. His waist was tightly wrapped by Mei's hands. "Let go!" Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as she forcefully tried to pry Mei's hands away. Mei's beautiful and charming face had already become distorted. Her voice was hoarse as she couldn't help but laugh coldly, "Yi Luo, as long as I capture you, I still have a chance. You absolutely cannot snatch away what belongs to me." Chapter 2749. The matter of Mei making use of Yan Zhenfei was pointed out clearly by Yiqing Luo. And also successfully sowed discord between her and Yan Zhenfei. If Mei still wanted to have a place in front of Yan Zhenfei, this was indeed Mei's only chance. Risking her life, using her own body, to save Yan Zhenfei. And using this, to let Yan Zhenfei issue an order to the Palace of Darkness's guards, to establish her own position. As long as the Palace of Darkness's guards made a move, earlier Yan Zhenfei's wretched state would be covered up. Everyone would only remember Palace of Darkness's power and power. She had to admit that this young lady called Mei was rather intelligent. Yiqing Luo's eyes dimmed as her gaze landed on Mei's opened collar, revealing that round bosom. The smile on her lips turned colder by several degrees. "Miss Mei, I don't know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex." Her voice was like a demonic charm, making one aghast. Mei's heart suddenly constricted fiercely, only to hear a "kacha" sound of bones breaking. Mei's expression instantly turned ghastly pale. The hands which were on Yiqing Luo's body drooped down weakly. At the same time, Yiqing Luo raised her leg as she kicked Mei's abdomen fiercely. Mei's body, flew towards the direction where the guards came from. Those 10 over-guards were swift, and their abilities were unfathomable. Just at the instance when Mei leapt away, 10 over-figures turned into numerous remnant images. Naked eyes were unable to capture them. Those 10 over-guards had already appeared around Yiqing Luo, wrapping Yiqing Luo within. And that Mei who originally flew towards the guards, directly rolled onto the ground. Sister Mei. Sun Yutong saw Mei rolling several times on the ground, as she cried out involuntarily. She was about to walk towards Mei's direction. But she thought of something, as her footsteps paused slightly, as she hesitated. Yan Zhenfei shot a glance at Mei, as her eyes dimmed, as an unknown emotion surged. "You, go over." Sun Yutong's eyes shone, as she speedily jogged towards Mei. Mei's internal organs felt a tearing pain from the fall. Large mouthfuls of blood gushed out from her mouth. But her hands were broken by Yiqing Luo, and the slightest movement would cause a heart-wrenching pain. Sister Mei. Sun Yutong immediately squatted down beside her and fed the pill in her hand into Mei's mouth. Plum's eyes were lifeless and unfocused. After a long while, he finally saw Sun Yutong clearly. A glimmer of light gradually appeared in her eyes. His body was also trembling slightly. Her lips moved as she silently spat out a few words. "Why, Messenger Yen? Forgive me, Sister Mei, don't talk. Take a rest first." Sun Yutong carefully supported Mei's head and said in a low voice, "Big Sister Yen allowed me to come and bring you medicine." The light in Mei's eyes grew brighter. She wanted to laugh, but she couldn't muster up any strength. Little by little, her heart felt at ease. Fortunately, she succeeded. As long as he could stand firmly by Yan Feifei's side, she would definitely be able to climb over Yan Feifei's head with her own abilities. For his own future. In order to take back what belonged to her, she had to stay calm. The Sacred Maiden Grand Ceremony's public square had mysteriously turned into a battlefield. However, the surrounding crowd didn't dare to open their mouths to stop her. Chapter 2750. Second, what should we do? Fourth Elder Miao looked at Elder Miao, anxiously. Second Elder Miao's expression was solemn as he shook his head. No one can stop the people from the Palace of Darkness from attacking. Are we just going to let them hit us? Fourth Elder Miao frowned. If they continue to fight, not only will they scare the guests who are rushing over, it will also delay the Saintess election. The Palace of Darkness. Second Elder Miao's gaze fell on the young lady who was surrounded by a dozen guards. We can't stop them. Now, why not take the opportunity to see how powerful the Palace of Darkness is? Anne. He paused, his gaze deepening. That young lady who has already entered the 9th level of the Earth Profound Realm at such a young age, how much potential does she have? Fourth Elder Miao paused, carefully considering Second Elder Miao's words. Suddenly, Fourth Elder Miao felt a weight on his shoulder. A huge palm pressed down heavily. Then he heard a hurried voice from behind him. What do you mean, see the power of the Palace of Darkness? See Luo's potential? She was invited to participate in the Saintess selection of the Miao tribe. Now that she is in danger, as the host, this is your attitude? The man's voice was very loud. In this silent and solemn atmosphere, it was extremely clear. Everyone turned their gazes toward Zhang Xian. Even Yan Zhenfei's gaze shifted over. Young Lord Gu. Second Elder Miao saw the person's face and called out in a low voice. Then he said, Young Lord Gu, it's better if you don't interfere in this matter. This person was Gu Jingyu. His handsome face was filled with anger at this moment. He pressed one hand on Fourth Elder Miao's body and the other on Second Elder Miao's body. If I don't interfere, then, are the two elders not going to interfere? Letting our guests be treated like this in our own territory, is this how the Miao tribe treats their guests? Gu Jingyu's voice was filled with anger. You've broadened my horizons. Second Elder Miao's face was ashen. Most of the guests around them had noticed the commotion on their side. Second Elder Miao's face darkened. If they interfered, they would definitely offend the Palace of Darkness. The current Miao tribe was definitely no match for the Palace of Darkness. If he didn't intervene, that also confirmed Gu Jingyu's words. The guests who were invited couldn't even guarantee the safety of the guests in their own territory. The reputation of the Miao tribe would definitely be ruined. Moreover, seeing how much Gu Jingyu cared about Yi Luo. Something happened to Yi Luo in the Miao tribe. Gu Jingyu would never let the Miao people off. It was a dilemma. The few elders of the Miao tribe present were all unable to open their mouths to reply. Just then, Yan Zhenfei's arrogant and contemptuous voice rang out unhurriedly. What is the relationship between young sect master Gu and Miss Yi? Why are you so concerned about Miss Ye's matter? Gu Jingyu's sullen expression immediately froze. Yan Zhenfei caught this and her smile grew. She deliberately glanced at the tall and slender figure standing beside Yan Xiaoyi and the rest. He smiled meaningfully. Young Lord Gu, look, Lady Ye's fiancé didn't say anything, but, why are you so agitated? Chapter 2751. You. What nonsense are you sprouting? Gu Jingyu's face instantly flushed red. His hands instinctively retracted back from the two Miao clan elders. Envoy Yan, I am merely standing on the standpoint of a friend to discuss this matter. But you said it in such a vile manner. What intentions do you have? Gu Jingyu was after all the young sect master of Gu Feng sect. His brain worked extremely fast. The expression on his face gradually revealed a warning and cold expression. Invisibly, a thick aura surged from his surroundings. Will his long robe, the wind billows, flapping noisily. This powerful aura made Yan Zhenfei's expression change slightly. All the guards had already surrounded Yi Qing Luo's surroundings. There was no one else protecting her. If Gu Jingyu really made a move on her. Yan Zhenfei pursed her lips tightly and laughed loudly. Whether it's a friend or some other unspeakable relationship, young sect master Gu knows clearly in his heart. But this envoy will give young sect master Gu a piece of advice. Miss Ye's ability to seduce men is not small. The men beside her are not just you. Saying that, she flicked her sleeves and turned towards the direction of Sun Yutong and Mei, who was undergoing treatment, as she walked over. Yan Zhenfei's sentence. It indeed gave one a lot of room for imagination. Furthermore, no matter how Gu Jingyu explained, it would inevitably make others suspicious of his relationship with Yi Luo. Unless, Gu Jingyu no longer spoke up for Yi Luo. Or even worse, become enemies with Yi Luo. Then there was a possibility to change everyone's thoughts. After all, a man and a woman, how could they be friends? On the other side, Yi Qing Luo was surrounded by those 10 over-secluded palace's guards, trapping her within. Those guards' profound qi was chilly, like an icy cold venomous snake, winding around Yi Qing Luo bit by bit. This feeling made Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased tightly. She knew that this group of secluded palace's guards were not ordinary guards. But, at this moment, they had yet to make a move against them. Yi Qing Luo had already deeply felt the strangeness of these people. If it was an ordinary person, how could they possibly emit such chilly profound qi? Simply like a dead person, emitting that extremely rotten, dense aura of death. Yi Qing Luo was frightened by this thought of hers. She focused her gaze and carefully sized up the guards around her. However, he did not find anything strange. The guards of the Abyss Palace exchanged glances with one another. Without any hesitation, they made their move. More than 10 figures moved almost at the same time. Everyone could only see countless afterimages flitting through the air. As for the red figure that was surrounded, it was instantly engulfed. There was no longer any sign of life. The surrounding guests all gasped in astonishment. They had just witnessed Yi Luo's strength. Moreover, Master Guiwu had personally admitted that he was a 9th-grade Earth Profound Realm Profound practitioner. But, under the siege of the dozen or so guards of the Palace of Darkness, he couldn't even hold on for a breath of time. One could see how powerful the Palace of Gloomy Darkness was. What a pity for that genius girl. At the instance when Yiqing Luo's red figure completely disappeared from everyone's eyes, Gu Jingyu's body suddenly tensed up. His eyes widened as he looked in disbelief at the rolling sand and dust, the ripple-like profound energy, and that swaying in the air, totally unable to see the figure's afterimage. His heart seemed to be suppressed by something. So much that he was unable to breathe. Miss Yi. That bright and beautiful, flamboyant and reckless young lady. Chapter 2752. Gu Jingyu's body stiffened bit by bit. Bit by bit, from a slight tremble, it gradually became bigger and bigger. His heart was empty. His suppressed emotions made his nose feel a little sour. Boundless anger surged from his chest. At this moment, his mind was completely blank. His mind was filled with Yi Luo's smile and frown. Obviously, they had only met a few times. Why did he have such deep feelings for her? So deep that even he himself couldn't believe it. It was as though his thoughts were controlling his body. Gu Jingyu strode towards Dmo Xian's direction. He grabbed Dmo Xian's sleeve, baring his teeth and glaring at him. His entire face was contorted in anger. His eyes were red and the gentleness was long gone. Aren't you Yi Luo's fiancé? Why didn't you save her? Why didn't you stop him? Gu Jingyu's sudden action made the surrounding guests believe in Yan Zhenfei's words. Yan Xiaoyi heard the surrounding guests' discussion. She frowned and was about to step forward to stop Gu Jingyu. The tall and slender man gently flicked the sleeve of his robe that was being pulled. In an instant, an invisible pressure came pouring down. The air around him seemed to be rioting at this moment. Gu Jingyu's hand had just touched Dmo Xian. But it was pushed away by this invisible wave. Gu Jingyu staggered for a while and almost fell to the ground. He didn't hurry to steady himself but continued to stare at Dmo Xian with bloodshot eyes. His voice was hoarse. You're not fit to be Yi Luo's fiancé. If it's me, I won't bear to let her suffer any harm. Young sect master Gu. Yan Xiaoyi's face turned pale when she heard Gu Jingyu's words. She quickly berated him sternly. Young sect master Gu, please conduct yourself with dignity. Luo and young sect master Gu are not related at all. Don't tell me you're trying to take the opportunity to ruin Luo's reputation by saying such misleading words. Gu Jingyu's eyes lit up for a moment. He stared blankly for a moment and lowered his eyes as he spoke in a hoarse voice. I'm just feeling indignant for Yi Luo. The square was deathly silent. The guests even stopped talking. What if young sect master Gu and Miss Yi didn't have an affair? They wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell. Young sect master Gu's feelings for Miss Yi were very deep. Looks like emissary Yen was right. Yi Luo was a promiscuous woman who could sleep with any man. Every outstanding man wanted to get close to her and become her backer. The reactions of the guests and the red figure that disappeared among the guards of the Palace of Darkness. This caused the smile on Yan Zhenfei's face to deepen. Although she was smiling, her eyes were terrifyingly sinister. He could almost see her distorted facial features under the veil. Damn little slut, a counterfeit dared to strut around in front of her, the emissary of the Palace of Darkness. And he even tried to threaten her with her weakness? Now, she wanted to see if that fake still had any life left to threaten her. Everyone in the world who knew her identity deserved to die. All of them must die. Now, a fake had died. Next was Yan Xiaoyi, her dear sister. Yan Zhenfei had already constructed a beautiful picture of the future in her mind. Just when everyone thought that the dust had settled, a voice suddenly rang out from the crowd. Suddenly, a deep, low, and hoarse voice rang out clearly in this silent atmosphere. Chapter 2753. Almost instinctively, the crowd looked in the direction of the voice respectfully. The man wearing half a mask, with a pair of black inky eyes, was deep and cold, without a single ripple. Just a gaze. It stunned the entire crowd. This was the aura of a real strong man. Compared to the pretentious aura of the secluded palace, it made people submit from the bottom of their hearts. This man, who was he? Countless people's hearts raised this doubt. Yan Zhenfei on the other side also had her eyes glued on Dmo Xian. In her eyes, there was an unconcealable yearning. Such a noble and powerful man. Only he could be worthy of her. This man was hers. Was hers. It could be said that all the ladies present had the same thought in their minds. They wanted to take him for themselves. But they also felt that he was sacred and noble, unattainable. At this moment, the man wearing half a mask opened his mouth again. His voice was bone-chilling. If Lil Luo can't defeat those people, I will naturally take action. His gaze slowly fell on Gu Jingyu. The icy cold, like December's frost, covered Gu Jingyu's body. Dmo Xian continued, in this world, no one can hurt Lil Luo, not even myself, can't. His words ended. Both eyes had already returned to the place where they were surrounded by those 10 overguards. Just for a moment. The man's icy cold gaze was like the blooming of spring flowers. The smooth lines of his clean chin, also at this moment, softened. Such a huge contrast made everyone's reverence towards Dmo Xian intensified. And, when Gu Jingyu, Yan Zhenfei and the rest heard Dmo Xian's first sentence, their expressions were different. Gu Jingyu was stunned at first. His face, which was filled with anger, gradually calmed down. He stared blankly at the direction Dmo Xian was looking at. This man's meaning was. He didn't make a move. Because, Yi Luo was fine? Yi Luo. Fine? Yan Zhenfei's face also darkened. After realizing Dmo Xian's words, she suddenly reacted to something. She immediately shouted sternly, "Come back. You bunch of trash. Come and protect this messenger." He he he. A light and melodious laughter rang in Yan Zhenfei's ears. It was a smile that seemed to have come from hell. Yan Zhenfei's body froze. It's too late. That laughter was softly spitting out words. The next moment, Yan Zhenfei felt a cold and soft finger around her neck. His nails were as sharp as blades. It was as if it could easily cut through her skin. That is, it was the girl in red who had been surrounded and attacked by more than 10 guards of the Palace of Darkness and had been engulfed. When did she rush in front of Emissary Yan? What incredible speed! To be able to escape from such a tight encirclement and even subdue the emissary of the Palace of Darkness, the crowd had once again refreshed their view of Yiqing Luo's ability. When did you? Yan Zhenfei's throat was clutched and it was difficult for her to speak. Yiqing Luo laughed beside her ear, just now. There was a faint smile on her face. It was not the smug smile he had after escaping the encirclement of the guards. Nor was it the vengeful smile he had when he choked Yan Zhenfei. Chapter 2754. The dozen or so guards were also stunned at this moment. They turned their heads in unison and looked at Yan Zhenfei, whose neck was being strangled. There was no expression on their faces, but they didn't continue to attack. They lined up in a row, facing Yiqing Luo's direction. They were like a dozen puppets, waiting for the final order. Yan Zhenfei was so frightened by Yiqing Luo that her entire body was trembling. A suffocating pain came from her neck, causing her to be filled with the desire to live. Save me! Save me! 10 overguards stood at their original spots. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as her gaze swept past those expressionless faces in front of her. A guess in the bottom of her heart slowly formed. She pursed her lips and moved her fingers slightly on Yan Zhenfei's neck. Following that, her lips curled as a bloodthirsty smile appeared in her eyes. She lowered her head and leaned close to Yan Zhenfei's ear as she whispered softly, "Looks like, as an envoy, you're a failure. You're spouting rubbish." Yan Zhenfei retorted with difficulty, "I'm the envoy of the Palace of Darkness, you kill me. If you kill me, they will not let you off." Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she was interested. "Then, why don't we try?" Just nice, she could try her guess. Yiqing Luo grabbed Yan Zhenfei's neck as she raised her eyes and smiled at the row of guards in front of her. "You people from the Palace of Darkness are merely so. You've been spreading it so mysteriously, even saying that you want to surpass the Imperial Palace. From what I see, you're not even half of the Imperial Palace." There was a hint of laughter in her voice. Following that, she tilted her head and blinked her long eyelashes as she gave an innocent smile. "Originally, on account that we're old acquaintances. Plus today, it's the Miao Tribe Saintess's selection ceremony. I didn't intend to disgrace you, such a pity." She intentionally paused for a moment. Her voice was mixed with a treacherous chill. "If you don't do it, you won't die. Since Envoy Yan loves to do it, then I'll fulfill your wish. Let you and your Palace of Darkness scram from heaven to hell." Yiqing Luo didn't intentionally control her volume for the first few sentences. He lowered his voice when he said the last sentence. The cold and deep voice was like a deadly lock, seeping into Yan Zhenfei's heart bit by bit. Almost reflexively, Yan Zhenfei screamed out, her face pale. The surrounding guests were in an uproar again. Could it be that Envoy Yan and Yi Luo were old acquaintances? An old acquaintance? Emissary Yan was from the upper realm. In other words, this Yi Luo was also from the upper realm? No wonder he had such a high cultivation at such a young age. Only those godlike people from the upper realm could be so perverted. After knowing that Yi Luo was from the 3 upper realms, everyone's attitude immediately changed. Yi Luo was right. From the beginning to the end, it was Yan Feifei who used the power of the Palace of Darkness to show off and threaten Elder Miao, forcing Yi Luo and the others, who were sitting in the first row, to move to the last row. If not for Yan Feifei's provocation, Yan Feifei would not have been kicked to the bench and ended up in this situation. If he didn't do it, he wouldn't die. The new image was very appropriate. Yi Luo. Squatting by the side, the pale-faced Sun Yutong grabbed Mei's robes in fear. Chapter 2755. Alright, it's not impossible to let her go. Yiqing Luo replied straightforwardly as her brows were filled with smiles. She raised her brows and the long arc at the corner of her eyes made her look rather evil. Sun Yutong was stunned as she didn't expect Yiqing Luo to be so easygoing. What do you want to do?" Yiqing Luo only smiled as she lowered her eyes to look at Yan Zhenfei, who was wearing a veil but it was unable to conceal her pale face as she asked with a smile, "Does Messenger Yan want to live?" Yes. She naturally wanted to live. Who didn't want to live? She had put in so much effort in order to live on. Even to the extent of betraying her everything. How could she possibly not want to live? But, Yan Zhenfei was very clear. Yiqing Luo would not let her live. At least, she wouldn't let her live easily. no matter how anxious she was. Yan Zhenfei finally opened her eyes wide as she tried her best to look at her calmly. Your motive? Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she looked at the direction of those guards. Order them to leave the Miao tribe. Yan Zhenfei's eyes flashed as her body shuddered slightly. She bit her lips tightly. No. Oh. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she smiled. As she smiled, her slender fingers tightened. Yiqing Luo was smiling. Her smile was gentle and her eyes were calm. Totally not like someone who was using her hands to kill someone. But, from Yan Zhenfei's struggling strength and that voice which could no longer speak, it had all been verified. Yiqing Luo really wanted to kill Yan Zhenfei. No. No. Sun Yutong instantly panicked. The Misty Palace's messenger was her only reliance now. If Yan Zhenfei died, who would bear the Misty Palace's anger? Yi Luo? No. Yi Luo was not only the person beside her, he was respected and powerful. Yi Luo herself was so powerful that no one could fathom her strength. Misty Palace would definitely take it out on the Sun family. No? Yiqing Luo actually loosened the strength of her fingers. After that, she smiled as she looked at Yan Zhenfei who had just escaped death, panting miserably. She smiled but it didn't reach her eyes. What does Messenger Yan think? She asked with a light smile. Yan Zhenfei finally escaped the suffocating pain. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, Yan Zhenfei's body suddenly trembled. He wanted to speak, but he was afraid of the pain he had just experienced. But Yiqing Luo didn't give Yan Zhenfei any time to hesitate. Yiqing Luo's eyes curved. Why? Are you still unwilling to withdraw your guards? She clicked her tongue and glanced at the guards who were standing as straight as a ramrod. Soon after, she shook her head and said, You are really a good-for-nothing envoy. Even your own subordinates are unwilling to save you. So, even if you leave these guards in the Miao tribe, what's the point? Yiqing Luo's voice wasn't soft. The guests also pricked up their ears, wishing they could hear the gossip clearly. After hearing Yiqing Luo's words, the guests were in an uproar. Speaking of which, this emissary from the Palace of Darkness seems a little strange. Yes, yes, yes. I feel that the guards of the Palace of Darkness don't care about her life at all. How can a guard ignore his master's life like this? I realized something was wrong a long time ago, but I didn't dare to say it. Didn't you feel it? Right from the start, Messenger Yan couldn't order these guards around. It was until she brought out the reputation of the Palace of Darkness before these guards started to take action. It seemed that only Sun family's young miss and that young Miss May kept on flattering her. But those guards from the Palace of Darkness totally didn't treat her as their master. Chapter 2756. Listening to the guests' discussions. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes in satisfaction. She had this idea in her mind. Didn't Yan Zhenfei like to bully others? Didn't she like to use her status as the Gloomy Palace's emissary to enjoy everyone's flattery? Didn't she like to be the center of attention, to be under one but above all? Then, she would shatter Yan Zhenfei's beautiful dream. To let Yan Zhenfei fall from the high and mighty emissary of the upper realm. To become the scum of everyone's ridicule. Now, Yiqing Luo could totally verify her guess. These Gloomy Palace's guards totally didn't listen to Yan Zhenfei's arrangements. It could also be said that Yan Zhenfei's status in Gloomy Palace, although her name sounded better than these guards, but her actual power wasn't comparable to these guards. This made Yiqing Luo couldn't help but think deeper. Yan Zhenfei originally followed Wolf Saint technique and left West Continent. Which meant to say, Yan Zhenfei wanted to treat herself as the second Yiqing Qian. After getting close to Wolf Saint technique, dark forces, together with some other forces, built a gloomy palace. Yan Zhenfei was able to become the Gloomy Palace's emissary, swaggering around Nirvana Realm, recruiting cultivators for Nirvana Realm. It must be Wolf Saint techniques doing. However, Yan Zhenfei's actual power was just an undeserved reputation. Could it be further assumed that dark forces in Gloomy Palace only played a pivotal role? Yiqing Luo's gaze shot towards that side of the guards once again, as her eyes flickered slightly. These guards had some problems. Although, currently, she wasn't sure what was wrong. But she could be sure. These guards were different from ordinary people. If these people were really Gloomy Palace's guards, the power behind this Gloomy Palace was probably hard to deal with. After confirming Yan Zhenfei's status in Gloomy Palace, Yiqing Luo also didn't have the intention to continue teasing Yan Zhenfei. Yan Zhenfei, you should feel lucky. Today is the day my brother Miao Yi takes part in the Sacred Maiden selection, so it's not suitable to see blood. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly, as she let go of Yan Zhenfei's neck. Yan Zhenfei's body seemed to have lost all her energy, as she fell limply onto the ground. Big Sister Yan. Sun Yutong was just about to go over. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she smiled and blocked her path. What I said is that I won't kill her today, but it doesn't mean that you can bring her away. She didn't want to let the tiger return to the mountain. Although Yan Zhenfei could only be considered a sickly cat at best. But, no matter how sick the cat is, when it came to annoying people, it was quite annoying. Last time in the West Continent, letting Yan Zhenfei escape with the Wolf Saint technique was an accident. This time, Yan Zhenfei took the initiative to deliver herself. A cold intent flashed past Yiqing Luo's eyes, and following that, she looked towards a certain direction behind her. Xiao Yi, how about I leave this person to you? Yan Xiao Yi, who was called out, suddenly froze. Yan Xiao Yi's gaze landed on the battered woman who was panting heavily on the ground. Her hands gradually clenched into fists. All right. A word was spat out from her mouth with great force. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her vision shifted onto Qiao Jin, as she pouted her lips. Qiao Jin understood her meaning as he gently held Yan Xiaoyi's hand and said in a low voice, I'll bring her over, later Yi will help you trap her in the Gu array. Saying that, Qiao Jin walked towards Yiqing Luo. He was about to bend down and lift up the battered woman on the ground. Suddenly, the hair by the side of his face suddenly floated messily. Chapter 2757. At the same time, a gust of raging wind suddenly rose, sweeping across the place where Qiao Jin was standing earlier. Boom boom boom. The deafening sound of the explosion reverberated through the air. A huge pit was formed on the ground. Dust billowed as it filled the surroundings. The ground also gave off a short period of tremors. If Qiao Jin hadn't avoided it earlier, Qiao Jin would definitely be buried in that huge pit by now. The horizon seemed to have been covered with a thick layer of ink in a split second. It was a patch of darkness, making one feel suffocated. The surrounding guests were stunned by the sudden change in the surroundings. What's going on? What's going on? Why did the weather suddenly change? Numerous terrified discussions resounded in the public square. The guests' hearts had an indescribable feeling of uneasiness, as it kept on surging. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased slightly as she raised her eyes to look at the dark sky, as her pink lips pursed slightly. She looked at Qiao Jin and asked in a low voice, Are you hurt? No. Qiao Jin shook his head, as his expression was grave. They don't come with good intentions, be careful. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. She naturally felt the oppressive feeling from this surge of energy. Indeed, they didn't come with good intentions. Moreover, they were obviously here for her. She sunk her eyes, and between her eyes, there was an obscure glint. Yan Zhenfei has been brought away. Qiao Jin's gaze swept towards the place where Yan Zhenfei laid earlier. The dust dispersed. Indeed, Yan Zhenfei's figure was nowhere to be seen. Even Sun Yutong and Mei, who were not too far away, had also disappeared. The people from secluded palace are here. Xiao Jin immediately reacted. Following that, he instinctively turned around and speedily returned to Yan Xiaoyi's side, as he hugged her shoulders tightly, in a protective posture. Secluded palace. Yan Xiaoyi's brows creased tightly as she raised her head and looked at the sky full of thick ink. She's really willing to be in cahoots with the devil for power now? Do you still mind? Xiao Jin asked in a low voice. Mind? Yan Xiaoyi's eyes had a moment of chaos. After some time, her lips twitched as she gave a low laugh. Don't mind, I've never asked for family, so why would I mind? Only, I find it rather amusing. The Yan family had bet all their treasures on Yan Zhenfei. He was even willing to stand on the side of the dark forces for Yan Zhenfei, abandoning the place he grew up in to help the dark forces invade the western continent. Now, Yan Zhenfei didn't just abandon the Yan family. He even sold his soul. If the Yan family knew that the Yan family would end up like this, would he still value Yan Zhenfei without any hesitation back then? She chuckled. As she smiled, the expression on her face returned to her usual calmness. All of this had nothing to do with her. The current her only needed Xiao Jin, Yiqing Luo and the other brothers, and that was enough. Just as the two of them were talking, suddenly, the row of guards from the Palace of Darkness started to move in unison. They quickly stood up straight and straightened their backs. Then, they cupped their fists and respectfully knelt down in a certain direction in the sky. Welcome, Second Palace Master. The guards' voices were loud and clear. The guests were shocked. They dug their ears and looked at the guards kneeling on the ground in disbelief. What did they say? Second Palace Master? The Second Palace Master of the Palace of Darkness? This bunch of guards who disregarded the orders of Yan Zhenfei, the Palace of Darkness envoy, were kneeling down to welcome the Second Palace Master? Chapter 2758. The sky was filled with thick ink as the black fog surged. Gradually, a black sedan descended from the sky. Surrounding the sedan were four beautiful ladies who looked the same as those Palace of Darkness guards. The black veil floated and the figure in the sedan was faintly discernible. Dong! The sedan landed on the ground and a majestic aura spread out in all directions. It made the atmosphere of the grand ceremony to become extremely solemn and solemn. At this moment, the guests even breathed cautiously. This was the Second Palace Lord of Darkness's palace. Everyone was shocked by the Second Palace Lord's aura. But Yiqing Luo's focus wasn't on the Second Palace Lord at all. She squinted her eyes as she looked at those guards who were kneeling on the ground. These guards' actions were a little too neat. Back then, the godless island's three evils, because they were triplets, their hearts were linked so they were able to move as one. But these guards, even if they had been trained together since young, it was impossible for them to be able to do it perfectly right. Furthermore, their voices sounded extremely rigid. As compared to Mo Yuying's rigid, it was even more stiff. There was an indescribable strange feeling. These guards. It was probably true and they were hiding some secret. I heard that someone in the Miao tribe bullied our Palace of Darkness's envoy. The lady's cold voice had a special vixen feeling. A fair jade-like hand lifted up the black veil of the sedan. Following that, an exquisitely dressed lady dressed in the Palace of Darkness's long robe walked out. The lady was wearing a black veil, revealing only that pair of fox-like eyes, which could captivate one's soul. This woman's temperament was filled with the natural charm of a fox. Totally not on the same level as Mei's pretentious seductive look. The guests present, even if they were ladies, were captivated by the second palace lord of darkness's beauty. The second palace lord walked down the sedan and the beautiful maids behind her went forward to support her. The second palace lord's footsteps were elegant and dignified. Her captivating eyes lightly swept past Mei and Yen Zhenfei who were lying on the side of the sedan. Who hurt the palace of darkness's envoy? Hu Mei's voice sounded softly. It was just like a normal question. However, everyone knew that it was just an illusion. The more soul-stirringly beautiful a woman was, the more dangerous it was. Especially when it was a beautiful woman with such a powerful aura and such a noble identity. What was even more dangerous was that it couldn't be touched. Under the immense pressure, everyone turned their gazes towards Yiqing Luo in unison. The second palace master's enchanting eyes curved into crescents as he followed everyone's gaze and looked over. Their eyes met. The second palace master's eyes flickered and he smiled. Why did you injure our palace's envoy? The second palace lord's voice was very gentle. It was impossible to tell that he was here to seek justice for his envoy at all. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she smiled evilly, legitimate self-defense. The deputy palace master tilted his head and continued to ask with a smile, so, it was my emissary who made the first move? Is it important who made the first move? Yiqing Luo had no interest in second palace lord's smiling tiger mask. The deputy palace master did not get angry. Instead, he nodded in agreement. Indeed, it's not important. The two of them spoke one after another. The surrounding guests were all dumbfounded. According to the normal development of the plot, shouldn't they take action directly and fight? Chapter 2759. None of the guests had noticed the undercurrent between Yiqing Luo and second palace lord. But that didn't mean that Dmo Xian and the rest couldn't sense it. Zhou Mo poked his own arm as he trembled while looking at Gue Wu. Do all women get along like this? Her face was smiling and her tone was gentle. But every word and sentence was filled with undercurrent. On the other side, Yiqing Luo's smile was tainted with a trace of treachery. She tilted her head as the smile in her eyes became more and more evil. Since it's not important, why did second palace lord ask? Second palace lord seemed to be tired of the confrontation with Yiqing Luo as she lowered her eyes and continued laughing. Young lady, the important thing is, you hurt my envoy. So, what does second palace lord intend to do? Yiqing Luo raised her brows evilly. Second palace lord slowly walked towards Yiqing Luo as her actions were elegant and noble. You also know that the reputation of the secluded palace cannot be destroyed. You hurt my envoy and that is challenging the prestige of the secluded palace. If I don't seek justice for the secluded palace's envoy, how would I be able to bear the title of second palace lord? Young lady, do you think what I said is right? I thought that the secluded palace had long lost its reputation. Yiqing Luo didn't have any intention to retreat as she looked at second palace lord who was walking over with a smile. Second palace lord brought along an oppressive aura. As though she wanted to envelop Yiqing Luo in her oppressive aura. Yiqing Luo's brows raised slightly as her eyes were calm. After all, your envoy can't even command a guard. Until Yiqing Luo finished her words. Second palace lord didn't say a word. She raised her brows in interest as she sized Yiqing Luo up. As though she was surprised about something. This daring young lady was totally unafraid of her oppressive aura. The second palace master's interest was piqued. Her mesmerizing eyes curved even more, and the smile in her voice deepened. Young lady, you're right. That's why I've come all the way here to punish these guards who have no foresight. Second palace lord's last word was settled. Faintly, there was a biting cold murderous intent. Following that, there was a burst of horrifying airwave, bam. The second palace master waved his sleeves. The thick profound energy was as fast as lightning as it charged towards the guards of the Abyss Palace who were kneeling in a row and not moving at all. Dong, 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 several heavy objects fell to the ground. The dozen or so secluded palace guards didn't even have the chance to scream before they died. They fell to the ground one after another. However, the most frightening thing was not the second palace master's ruthless killing. Instead, it was extremely strange. It was so strange that the guests, who were used to seeing killing, all stood up. Some even screamed. When many women saw this scene, they all leaned towards the men beside them, seeking comfort. On the ground, the guards of the Dark Abyss Palace laid motionlessly. There is a kind of creepy feeling. The dozen guards were originally kneeling in a neat row on the ground. At this moment, they were neatly lined up in a row. One by one, they neatly fell to the ground. Be it the posture or the expression, they were all exactly the same, without the slightest deviation. This was only one of the strangest things. Chapter 2760. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she took a closer look. After staring for some time, she frowned slightly. Could it be that, the reason why these guards died was because the second palace lord's profound chi had condensed into a blade and slit their necks? But that wasn't right. Why was it that when their necks were slit, there wasn't a drop of blood? Was it because this second palace lord's skills were swift? No, no matter how fast it was impossible that there wasn't a drop of blood. What on earth was going on? Hiss. This second palace lord, what on earth is she doing? She actually killed her own people? Isn't she afraid that after killing those guards, no one will protect her? She only has those 4 personal maids by her side. If something really happened, will they be able to protect her? Are you silly? Immediately, a guest retorted, didn't we see how powerful those guards were? However, the vice palace master of the gloomy palace only moved her sleeves and easily killed more than 10 guards at the same time. Can't you see her strength? The second palace lord of the Nether Palace is totally able to fight against 100, why would she need the protection of those guards? Isn't it because she's the second palace lord of the Nether Palace and these guards are unable to resist? Hee. Earlier second palace lord Speed, if it was you, would you be able to evade it? That guest who had doubts immediately kept quiet. That's right, the moment the second palace lord made her move. They were all enveloped by the tumbling airwaves, and felt as if their bodies and minds were being burned by raging flames. How would they have any energy left to evade the second palace lord's attack? The guests suddenly recalled that when Yi Luo was surrounded by those guards, he only used his speed and agility to evade the guards' encirclement. But towards those guards, he obviously had no way to fight against them. Otherwise he wouldn't have captured Messenger Yen and used him to threaten him, to make those guards leave the Miao tribe. Master Guo Wu said that Yi Luo was Earth Profound 9th grade and was about to step into the Sky Profound realm. Yi Luo wasn't a match for the guards of the Nether Palace. But the second palace lord of the Nether Palace could easily wipe out those guards. Which meant the second palace lord's profound grade was above Yi Luo. In other words, above the Sky Profound realm. Furthermore, it wasn't just the Sky Profound realm. This idea caused an uproar among the guests. Towards the power and strength of the Dark Nether Palace, he was filled with yearning. After all, this other world was a place where the strong ruled and the weak were prey to the strong. Anything that could be explained with fists would never be explained with words. Previously, Yi Luo had been very powerful. The scale of the guests was tipping towards Yi Luo. Now, the Vice Palace Master of Gloomy Palace had appeared. The balance of the crowd immediately tilted towards the Dark Palace. The Assistant Palace Master sensed the respect and reverence the guests had for her. A trace of disdain appeared on her face. She narrowed her mesmerizing eyes and chuckled softly. Although it was separated by a layer of black gauze, one could still vaguely see the outline and lines of the face under the veil. Her smile and frown were extremely charming. These useless trash, I have already settled them, now. Second Palace Lord's gaze slowly shifted onto Yiqing Luo, as his smile deepened. It's your turn. As the Second Palace Master's voice fell, her eyes, which were originally filled with smiles, at this moment, it suddenly froze into frost. Her arms opened wide as her body floated in midair. Chapter 2761. Light laughter spilled out from Second Palace Lord's mouth, extremely savage and extremely complacent. Suddenly, she raised her arm high up in the air. The surrounding airwaves surged and surged, flying towards the Second Palace Master's raised arm to attack. Kacha! A bolt of lightning tore a huge hole in the inky black sky. Second Palace Lord floated in midair. That torn hole was right behind her. It made her look as though she was an Asura who had crawled out from the entrance of hell. It made one's hair stand on end ineffably. The inky black sky surged. The raging wind brought along a raging wave of energy as it spread majestically across the entire public square. Strong. What powerful energy! Everyone's heart almost stopped beating at this moment. This energy had absolutely surpassed Yi Luo's energy by far. Yi Luo, this young genius young lady, was probably going to die here today. The guests felt some pity in their hearts. After Gu Jingyu sensed that man's powerful energy, his body suddenly turned stiff. You still don't intend to make a move? Miss Yi is not Secluded Palace's Second Palace Lord's opponent. His entire body was tensed up, as though he was suppressing something. Dmo Xian's gaze didn't turn as he stared at Yiqing Luo's figure without blinking. As though he didn't hear Gu Jingyu's words at all. Gu Jingyu gritted his teeth. This man was wearing a half mask on his face. He couldn't tell the emotions on this man's face at all. Wasn't this man Yi Luo's fiancé? Why was he so indifferent towards Yi Luo's misfortune? Since this fiancé of yours is afraid of death, then don't blame me for interfering in your relationship. Gu Jingyu sensed the Second Palace Lord's profound qi fluctuating and he couldn't bear it any longer. He flicked his sleeves and was about to charge towards Yiqing Luo's direction. However, a single hand stopped him in his tracks. Zhou Mo raised one hand lazily as his narrow phoenix eyes rose upwards. Young Sect Master Gu, what are you trying to do? I'm going to save Miss Yi. Gu Jingyu raised his hand and chopped at Zhou Mo's arm. Young Master Mo, please step aside. Anyone with discerning eyes can tell that you have feelings for little Qing Luo. You want to save her. Are you trying to let those people assume that you and little Qing Luo have an affair? Zhou Mo didn't move at all. Gu Jingyu's face sunk and his eyes were filled with ridicule as he shot a glance at Dmo Xian's direction. Yes, this young patriarch admires Miss Yi. Since Lady Ye's fiancé doesn't know how to cherish Lady Yi, then this young master will cherish her. Do you think you're a match for the Vice Palace Master of the Secluded Palace? Zhou Mo laughed. Cherish? Running to your death and making little Qing Luo feel guilty towards you, remembering you in her heart for the rest of her life. This kind of cherishing? You. Gu Jingyu clenched his fists. This young lord is indeed not the Second Palace Master's opponent, but to have this young lord stand here and watch, this young lord cannot do that. But, this young lord will not let you make a move. Zhou Mo smiled elegantly as his arm suddenly hooked around Gu Jingyu's shoulder. Following that, he forcefully pulled Gu Jingyu over to Gue Wu's side. As he walked, he said, Young Sect Master Gu, little Qing Luo's fiancé's feelings towards little Qing Luo, you won't understand. Just stand here obediently, don't let little Qing Luo be distracted and drag her down. Gu Jingyu was still struggling, but no matter what, he was unable to break free from Zhou Mo's restraint. Because of this, Gu Jingyu didn't see it. Chapter 2762. His eyes were focused and serious. In his mind, there was a blurry face that he couldn't see clearly. That face was smiling at him. Her coquettish voice seemed to be able to soothe all the bad emotions in his heart. Ah, Xian, I want to grow up alone. I want to rely on my own strength to stand by your side and walk side by side with you. The girl was smiling. Vaguely, he seemed to see that alluring face. It only took an instant for everything to return to its previous tranquility. Dmo Xian shut his deep eyes. He forcefully suppressed the restlessness that was constantly surging in his heart. He knew that person was Lil Luo'er. Even if their appearances were different. He could also confirm that person was Lil Luo'er. He promised little Luo'er. It would give little Luo'er a chance to grow. He should believe in Lil Luo'er. His little Luo'er would become stronger when meeting strong opponents, and weaker when meeting weak opponents. There was absolutely no problem. However, there was always a voice in his heart that kept floating in his mind. They were clamoring for him to charge forward. Protect his little Luo'er. Protect his Lil Luo'er. He would not let Lil Luo'er be harmed in the slightest. Dmo Xian clenched his fist tightly, as he clenched it even harder. Everyone's attention was gathered on Yiqing Luo's side. No one noticed it. Dmo Xian's eyes were hidden under the mask. His gaze towards Yiqing Luo was filled with determination and forbearance. Sometimes, they were infatuated with each other. This was the struggle between the love worm and Dmo Xian's consciousness. Love Gu activated his consciousness. He wanted him to protect Yiqing Luo unconditionally. Whereas, the memories regarding Yiqing Luo kept replaying in Dmo Xian's mind. Such a crisscrossing consciousness was activated. This made Dmo Xian's body gradually tensed up. However, no one noticed this. Even if he found out, he would only treat it as worrying about Yiqing Luo. The other side. Yiqing Luo raised her head up high and squinted her eyes slightly, looking at the second palace lord who was suspended in midair. The corners of her mouth curled into a teasing smile, revealing a hint of carelessness. It was as if he didn't care about the second palace master at all. But Yiqing Luo indeed didn't treat the second palace lord as anything. She admitted. The assistant palace master was indeed very strong. Indeed, it was above her profound rank. However, it was not that she was no match for the deputy palace master. Just as Dmo Xian had said. She had a physique that grew stronger when encountering the strong and weaker when encountering the weak. The stronger the opponent. Only then would her fighting spirit be aroused. The stronger the opponent. Only then would she be able to gain actual combat experience and grow. Most importantly, as the saying goes, the connoisseur recognizes the artistry, while the layman enjoys the show. In the eyes of the crowd, the surging waves of terrifying aura of the second palace master were extremely horrifying and intimidating. But, in the eyes of Yiqing Luo and the other top exponents, that second palace master kept showing off and creating cool, special effects. From the start, it didn't have the slightest bit of actual strength. In the air, layers upon layers of airwaves were constantly surging. Behind the second palace master, the streaks of lightning that had been torn apart continuously converged and spread out bit by bit. The profound chi, at this moment, suddenly expanded. The second palace master's gaze was like a torch as he stared coldly at Yiqing Luo. His raised arm instantly pointed downwards towards Yiqing Luo's face. Anyone who dares to offend my secluded palace shall be killed without mercy. The raging waves of profound chi were like huge waves surging as it attacked the biting cold profound chi. At the same time, Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the surging profound chi blowing towards her face. Chapter 2763. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as the smile on her lips blossomed like a poppy. His eyes were gradually filled with excitement. Her eyes flickered and her entire temperament suddenly changed. She was an elegant and lovely little beauty. At this moment, she had turned into a bloodthirsty and enchanting demon. Her eyes were filled with smiles as she looked at the incoming attack. This time, she had no intention of dodging. Instead, her palms moved and her fingertips danced like a dancing fairy. A red feather fan appeared on her fingertips. Swoosh! The feather fan was opened and the red profound glow lingered around the feather fan. Under the lightning cliff, it gave off an extremely demonic aura. Like a scorching flame, burning continuously. With Yiqing Luo as the epicenter, the ground started to crack, densely like a spider web as the cracks spread out. All these seemed to have taken quite a bit of effort. In actual fact, it was merely a moment. Bam! Vice Palace Lord's attack landed directly. Dust and thick and terrifying air waves rolled, enveloping Yiqing Luo's surroundings instantly. It engulfed and covered up everything in the surroundings. Everyone's gazes were fixed on that area which was engulfed by the numerous air waves. One by one, they shook their heads and sighed. Indeed, indeed. Earth Profound 9th grade was after all not comparable to the Sky Mystic Overlord and above. However, with just one move, he had easily taken care of a 9th grade Earth Profound Realm Xian practitioner. The power of the Gloomy Palace was indeed well deserved. Some even felt that if the Vice Palace Lord was so powerful, then the Grand Palace Lord of the Gloomy Palace could be on the same level as the Overlord. No wonder the Gloomy Palace dared to say such words. To be able to surpass the Imperial Palace within a month. Looking at the Gloomy Palace, they could easily annihilate a bunch of powerful guards. Another Earth Profound 9th grade cultivator which Master Ghost Martial Artist had high hopes of. This Gloomy Palace could absolutely surpass the Imperial Palace. Ding! All of a sudden, a crisp sound could be heard. The sound was extremely hurried. Instantly, it attracted everyone's attention. Only to see in that dust and air waves. A bewitching red glow gradually spread out. The boundless air waves rolled like a tide. In just a few breaths' time, he had completely suppressed that powerful air wave. The red light continued to spread. It dispersed the chi wave created by the second palace master. Amidst the red light, the young girl's red dress fluttered in the wind like a blossoming rose, extremely flirtatious. The girl held a burning fan in her hand, and her fingers danced in the air. The fan opened and closed, like a fire elf, flying in the air waves. Clang! There was the sound of things colliding again. Yiqing Luo opened her arms wide. The fan in her hand, unknowingly, had already left Yiqing Luo's hand. It was moving at an extremely fast speed. He broke through the layers of air waves created by the second palace master. It struck a long sword in front of the second palace master. The instant the fan hit the long sword, the sword trembled. The layer of black mist that shrouded the long sword suddenly dispersed. Thump! A heavy object fell to the ground. The long sword fell to the ground. At the same time, the body of the second palace master, who was floating in the air, swayed and unexpectedly fell down uncontrollably. The second palace master's robes fluttered like butterfly wings. The black veil on her face was lifted, revealing half of her face. Yiqing Luo's gaze coincidentally fell on that half of her face. Suddenly, her eyes dimmed and her body froze. That face, was it her illusion? If she didn't remember wrongly. Chapter 2764. Damn it! This unforeseen event caused the assistant palace master's tone to be filled with killing intent. She raised her wrist abruptly. Just as she was about to land on the ground, a thick black fog surrounded her body. His rapidly falling body instantly landed steadily on the ground as light as a feather. She steadied herself and flipped her wrist once again. The long sword on the ground seemed to be sucked by something as it returned to her palm. Second Palace Lord's weapon is just a long sword? The young lady's clear voice was heard from behind. Her hand which was holding the long sword stiffened. Immediately, she turned sideways and tried to escape. But her feet had just started to move. He placed a hand on the Second Palace Master's shoulder. The young lady's extremely melodious voice was heard clearly. Isn't Second Palace Lord going to clear the name of secluded palace? Why did you run away so impatiently the moment you saw me? The young lady was still smiling. That soft and slender fingers which were pinching on her shoulder looked weak and boneless. But she couldn't break free at all. As for the young lady, she didn't move at all. Under Yiqing Luo's strength, the Second Palace Master turned around. She raised her eyes and met with a pair of narrow and devilish eyes. That pair of eyes were as bright as the stars, sparkling brightly. And faintly, there was a glint of flowing light. Just a glance. The Second Palace Master had a feeling as though her soul was being sucked away. It was Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo's seemingly elegant face, but her aura did not diminish at all. The Second Palace Master's heart thumped fiercely. Her mind recalled that person's exhortation in her ear, "Be careful, especially towards that lady named Yiqing Luo, you must be on guard. Her ability is not as good as yours, but her potential is terrifying." She thought that in this lower realm, even if she met any genius cultivator, that person could only be considered as a genius from the lower realm. Because of that, she didn't put that person's exhortation to heart. However, at that moment, she seemed to have understood what that person meant. The Second Palace Master's eyes turned slightly cold. She had underestimated her opponent. This time round, she would not give Yiqing Luo any chance to retaliate. A thought flashed across his mind. The Vice Palace Master's expression suddenly became cold and gloomy. At the same time, profound qi surged from the Assistant Palace Master's body. Two streams of profound qi that looked like black fog shot out from her body. Transforming into two rays of profound light, with an irresistible force, it shot towards Yiqing Luo's face, directly piercing downwards. But, the Assistant Palace Master's plan failed again. Just as the Second Palace Master's expression changed, Yiqing Luo had already sensed it. At the moment when the Xian Qi of the Second Palace Master surged wildly, she immediately let go of her hands and moved to a safe place. Yiqing Luo wasn't flustered in the slightest, the expression on her face was calm and tranquil. It was a stark contrast to the Deputy Palace Master's eyes, which were filled with rage. Is the Second Palace Lord getting serious? Yiqing Luo's sweet voice was mixed with a slight smile. She looked like the girl next door, pure and innocent. However, the Second Palace Master could see it clearly. The young lady's smiling eyes revealed a trace of ridicule. The Vice Palace Master's eyes darkened, her profound qi surged once again, her eyes were aghast as she gave Yiqing Luo a warning stare. Chapter 2765. As she said that, she looked meaningfully at the long sword in Second Palace Lord's hand. Second Palace Lord's eyes were filled with emotions as her bewitching eyes stared widely. How do you know that this weapon isn't my weapon? Yiqing Luo shook her glower flame fan and held it against her lower jaw. The long sword's body is wide and the sword hilt is thick and the surface is stained with too much filthy blood stench. It doesn't look like a lady's weapon. She raised her brows and continued confidently, this long sword should be given to Second Palace Lord by someone who values Second Palace Lord, to protect Second Palace Lord. Earlier, Second Palace Lord was suspended in mid-air, when she was creating all kinds of powerful pressure. The long sword was firmly placed in front of the Second Palace Master's body. It was because she sensed that the long sword didn't look like Second Palace Lord's weapon. That was why Yiqing Luo directly struck down that long sword. As expected. Just as she had guessed. This second palace lord was the source of most of the profound energy. It was because of that long sword. What a observant young lady. When second palace lord heard that, she didn't continue to refute. She sneered as she placed the long sword on her body and spoke coldly, "Young lady, since you're looking for death, I shall fulfill your wish." Her words had just ended. Second palace lord opened her fingers. A long whip with 9 segments appeared in her hand. The surrounding guests all sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw that long whip clearly. On that long whip, there was a tide of black fog which kept surging. Faintly, there was a flash of lightning like flowing light. It gave out a hissing sound. Was that a long whip or a poisonous snake? No matter how the crowd looked, they couldn't see clearly what the soft object under the fog was. When Yiqing Luo saw second palace lord's weapon, her expression dimmed slightly as the serene look in her eyes turned deeper. Long whip. It was indeed a long whip. She didn't see it wrongly. This second palace lord's face. Yiqing Luo stared at the layer of black veil on second palace lord's face. Her gaze was burning as though it was burning. Second palace lord was distracted by Yiqing Luo's presumptuous gaze. She clenched the long whip tightly as the black qi lingered around it and struck directly. A powerful wave of qi swept out. The surging waves once again filled the air. Yiqing Luo's lips curled into a sneer as she casually played with the glower flame fan in her hands. The moment the second palace master's attack landed, Yiqing Luo's figure swayed. The two sides clashed. This time round, Yiqing Luo didn't adopt any battle tactics. Instead, he faced the assistant palace master head-on. Powerful airwaves constantly rolled in the air. The sky that was as dark as ink was covered densely with dark clouds at this moment, and it was mixed with lightning and thunder, causing the atmosphere to be extremely strange. Over here, the battle was in full swing. On the other side, it was completely impossible to see the silhouettes of both parties clearly, and they could only feel the vast and boundless profound energy. At this moment, the guests, who were bursting forth and rolling about, were in an uproar. A guest pointed at the two people fighting, his face full of disbelief. "Did I see wrongly? Just now I saw." Glowing flame fan? That woman called Yi Luo has the gourd flame fan? Gourd flame fan. Isn't that the weapon used by that young hero of the Western continent? Gourd flame fan. There seems to be only one in this world. Why is it in Yi Luo's hands? The appearance of the gourd flame fan aroused the suspicions of numerous guests. Chapter 2766. Most of the people in Nirvana realm knew about Yiqing Luo's deeds. Naturally, they knew about Yiqing Luo's exclusive weapon. Suddenly, the guests thought of something as they exclaimed, "Yi Luo! Yiqing Luo! The Overlord has publicly acknowledged the future mistress of the Imperial Palace, dressed in red, devastatingly beautiful. Overlord! Red! Yi Luo, Yiqing Luo." The guests at this moment in their minds, regrouped all these symbols together. Everything indicated. The lady named Yi Luo in front of them was the little hero of the West Continent, Yiqing Luo. And only Yiqing Luo could possess the only glower flame fan in the world. And only Yiqing Luo could get so much attention from the Overlord. And only Yiqing Luo, at such a young age, her profound grade had already broken through the sky profound stage, becoming the only one in Nirvana realm at such a young age, to step into the sky profound stage. Not earth profound 9th grade. But sky profound supreme. She is Yiqing Luo? The Yiqing Luo who is known as the female version of the Overlord? Suddenly, among the guests, a sharp female voice was heard. Only to see a slender figure in a cloak, covering her face, suddenly stood up and stared at the two people who were entangled with each other. Her tone was filled with disbelief. On the side, a figure in the same cloak, grabbed the arm of the lady in front, and shook it anxiously. The lady in front turned her head to look at the lady behind her, and impatiently shook her hand away. That lady staggered and fell onto the ground. The surrounding was a long table, the lady's head directly hit the long table when she fell. A loud dong sound was heard, it was extremely loud. When the crowd heard it, they felt a pain in their head. But unfortunately, that lady rubbed her forehead, and stood up without a word. Not even a cry of pain was made. The lady in front didn't feel guilty because of her own actions. The wide black cloak covered her expression. Only to hear her slightly hoarse voice, sharp and ear-piercing, "How could she be Yi Qing Luo? Impossible. She is obviously a lowly student." The guests only felt that this voice sounded extremely familiar. But at this moment, they couldn't recall. The guests sitting next to the woman suddenly looked at each other. Then, they stood up at the same time and rushed toward the woman who was rubbing her forehead. The woman was caught off guard and her hands were tightly held by the two guests. The guest raised his hand and lifted the woman's cloak. Under the cloak, a small and delicate face was revealed. The expressions of the two guests suddenly changed. Princess Beilan? Wasn't this woman the Northern Wave Continent's princess, Xia Lingling? Why was Xia Lingling here? Wasn't the Northern Wave imperial family in imminent danger? Xia Lingling's position as the princess was already in jeopardy. How could Xia Lingling appear here? Wait, this is Xia Lingling. Then, who was that sharp-tongued lady? When the woman saw that Xia Lingling's face had been exposed, she cursed softly, "Trash." He quickly turned around, intending to leave. However, the crowd who had already found out about Yi Qing Luo's true identity. He couldn't wait to find a chance to curry favor with Yi Qing Luo. How could they possibly let off that lady who obviously had enmity with Yi Qing Luo? Immediately, a few guests swarmed up and held that woman down. Lifting the black cloak. That person, wasn't she East Wave's young princess, Lan Ling Nuo? Chapter 2767. After Lan Ling Nuo was discovered, her expression instantly became somewhat ugly. She bit her lower lip tightly. The surrounding people were sizing her up with gazes which made her feel extremely embarrassed. But both her hands were restrained by the guests, so there was no way for her to struggle. Xia Lingling made a nasal sound towards Lan Ling Nuo's direction. Her eyes were filled with fear and uneasiness. The crowd then recalled. Xia Lingling's tongue had already been plucked out by the overlord. So it's these two young princes who are about to become commoners. Do you feel especially slapped on the face? Some of them had long disliked these two princesses' way of doing things, and now that they had the chance, they couldn't help but ridicule them. Previously I always felt that no matter if it was status, ability, or looks, I'm much stronger than Miss Yi. But now... Miss Yi is the little hero of the West Continent, a genius with outstanding ability. The crowd roared with laughter. But they had long forgotten about it. Before this, their own, Lan Ling Nuo and Xia Lingling's attitude towards Yi Qing Luo was no different. Just as the crowd was making a ruckus. A low and sullen voice, like 1,000 caddy lead brick, fell heavily on everyone's hearts, pressuring them till they couldn't breathe. Shut up. It was just two simple words. The laughter and clamor stopped abruptly. The crowd turned their gazes towards the man who spoke out. His tall figure was tall and towering. Under the half-gold-rimmed mask, two eyes that were as deep as a lake seemed to be condensed with layers of frost. This was Yi Qing Luo's fiancé? No, Yi Qing Luo's fiancé, wasn't he the overlord? This man, was the overlord? The crowd's hearts suddenly felt a suffocating feeling. All the words were stuck in their throats. They didn't dare to make any noise. After all, Yiqing Luo was still in a life-and-death struggle with the second palace lord of Secluded Palace. The overlord's emotions were definitely unstable. If they made any noise and touched Yiqing Luo's bad luck, they would definitely be punished by the overlord. After a few big moves clashed against the moves, Yiqing Luo and Vice Palace Lord both retreated backwards. Because of the collision of the two's profound energies, the entire plaza's ground had already cracked open into pieces. The ground was full of holes and gravel. The raised platform and the flags fell to the ground. No matter how the two of them fought, it didn't even affect the guests. Second Palace Master retracted his long whip, his eyes were sinister as if he was dipped in poison, ruthlessly cutting Yiqing Luo's body. You really have some skills. Yiqing Luo's fingertips flicked as she played with the glower flame fan. Her jade-white fingers fused with the raging flames. In the eyes of others, Yiqing Luo was like a fairy who controlled the flames, noble and mysterious. She raised her lips and smiled in a low voice. Her eyes were also smiling. Vice Palace Master, you couldn't beat me before. Now, no matter what method you use to quickly raise your profound level. But, I can tell you for sure, you can't beat me no matter what. The Vice Palace Master clenched his fists and frowned. What do you mean? Before what? Did I know you before? 3 consecutive questions made Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes. She stared at the Vice Palace Master confidently for some time. Her carefree expression slowly converged and turned grave. Chapter 2768. Second Palace Lord's brows creased even tighter. The eyes under the veil looked at Yiqing Luo in bewilderment. She seemed to be pondering whether Yiqing Luo's actions were some kind of scheme, trying to lure her into a trap. Second Palace Lord silence. Yiqing Luo saw it all. She could clearly see the unfamiliarity in Second Palace Lord's eyes. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips and paused for a moment. Wait, are you sure you don't recognize me? After she finished her words, she raised her slender fingers and caressed her face. Her fingers were tapping and exploring her face at an extremely fast speed. In just a moment, an extremely thin layer of something, like a water droplet, rolled on her palm. That is indeed, it's Yiqing Luo. Heavens! Indeed, as the rumors described, a red robe that could topple the world. This is simply able to topple all living things. I will not say that the rumors are fake anymore. The moment Yiqing Luo's thin mask was removed, the surrounding guests immediately burst into an uproar. It wasn't that they hadn't seen a beauty before, but they had never seen such an exquisite, enchanting beauty. Plus, the beauty was noble and elegant, with an unattainable temperament. What's more, once people's gazes landed on her, they couldn't take their eyes off her. The young lady's skin was crystal clear, as fair as snow. Especially that exquisite picturesque face. Devastatingly beautiful, peerlessly enchanting. Slender eyebrows, dazzling eyes. So beautiful that it made one suffocate. The guests exclaimed one after another. To tell the truth, when they saw East Billow's young princess, Lan Ling Nua, they really felt that Lan Ling Nua deserved the title of East Billow's #1 beauty. But now that they had seen Yiqing Luo's real face, Lan Ling Nua's so-called #1 beauty title was simply a slap on the face. Compared to Yiqing Luo, the difference was not just 1 or 2 points. And when Yiqing Luo's face was revealed, Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nua, who were restrained by the guests, immediately had a change of expression. Lan Ling Nua's struggle was forgotten. Her pair of beautiful eyes seemed to be coated with poison as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo's direction. Impossible. How could this be possible? That ugly girl, how could she be Yiqing Luo? This must be fake. You're all lying to me. Lan Ling Nua couldn't accept this and roared in anger. Xia Lingling's eyes widened in astonishment. Her body, which was held by the guests, began to tremble slightly. She could not speak. But the frantic shaking of her head showed that she was the same as Lan Ling Nua, unable to believe everything that was happening before her eyes. Whereas for Yi Qing Luo, towards the guests' reactions, she had no reaction at all. She put the skin back into the profound phoenix ring. Shortly after, she placed her finger on her chin and fixed her charming eyes on the second palace master. Now, do you recognize it? The second palace master's tightly knitted eyebrows had already formed several wrinkles. Second palace lord looked at Yi Qing Luo's devastatingly beautiful face. There wasn't a single bit of shock or hatred in her eyes which Yi Qing Luo had expected. Gradually, a layer of vigilance appeared in the eyes of the second palace master. He asked doubtfully, "Who are you? Why should this consort recognize you?" The look in the vice palace master's eyes and her unfamiliar tone of voice. This made Yi Qing Luo restrain the emotions in her eyes. Had she seen wrongly earlier? Or this so-called second palace master had lost her memory? If the second palace master was really that person. At the moment she saw her. Chapter 2769. However, just now, when the second palace master's veil flew up, it landed on Yi Qing Luo's face. But it was clearly imprinted in her mind. That face had been in her memory for more than 10 years, how could he be mistaken? Yi Qing Luo pursed her pink lips, her eyes congealed slightly as she asked word by word, Are you Yi Qing Qian? He had seen the face of the deputy palace master from the very beginning. It was no different from Yi Qing Qian's face. That was why she had noticed the weapon used by the second palace master. Then, he forced the second palace master to reveal her true weapon, the long whip. Yi Qing Qian's weapon was a long whip. This made Yi Qing Luo even more certain of the second palace lord's identity. However, she took off her human skin and revealed her true appearance. The deputy palace master's reaction made her doubt her own conjecture. Yi Qing Qian. The second palace lord murmured this name softly, without any other emotions in his eyes. Obviously, the second palace master was also unfamiliar with this name. Could it be, second palace lord really wasn't Yi Qing Qian? Yi Qing Luo's slender brows creased even tighter. In his mind, he kept recalling the last time he saw Yi Qing Qian. In her memory, Yi Qing Qian was fed a pill by her to hang on to her life. Then, she beat him into a meat patty. Her face was completely ruined. His body had also become a pile of rotten meat. In the end, the wolf saint technique gave up. The effect of the medicine could only last for a few hours at most. Once the effect of the drug wore off, Yi Qing Qian would rot and die in agony. However, the second palace master in front of him, regardless of appearance or figure. She was no different from Yi Qing Qian. What was going on? Little girl, I don't have time to waste on you. Don't think of any roundabout schemes, I won't fall for it. Vice Palace Master's hair stood on end from Yi Qing Luo's gaze. After the goosebumps, it was followed by the frustration of being humiliated. The second Palace Master's long whip moved, and his profound energy surged, once again setting off raging waves. Profound chi that caused one's heart to palpitate swept out like a tide. The airwaves lingering in the air were also rolling more and more violently. Yi Qing Luo's reaction was swift, at the instance when the second Palace Master made his move. She moved quickly. A glimmer of light flickered in her charming eyes. With a flick of her fingers, the glowing flame fan unfurled itself from her fingertips. Carrying a profound energy that could contend against the second Palace Master, she directly welcomed the attack. Meanwhile, Yi Qing Luo's feet floated swiftly. His movement technique, which had been fused with the teleportation secret art, was unleashed to its fullest in this instant. In the blink of an eye, Second Palace Lord's long whip had just collided with Yi Qing Luo's profound qi. The sound of air currents rippling could be heard. The Second Palace Master's expression changed as he realized something. She retracted her whip and quickly retreated. However, even if the Second Palace Master's reaction speed was already godlike, it was still not enough. However, he was still a step too late. Just as the Second Palace Master retreated, a red figure followed like a shadow into the eyes of the Assistant Palace Master. The girl's pink lips curled up slightly, and there was a trace of unknown emotion in her eyes. She held out her hand. Her slender fair fingers tugged on the Second Palace Master's black veil. The young girl's pink lips moved slightly, and using a voice that only the two of them could hear, she said, "Although, Second Palace Master's performance made me feel that I might have seen wrongly. But, if I don't confirm it with my own eyes, I'm afraid I won't be able to be at ease." Presumptuous. The Second Palace Master's eyes widened, as she raised her hand and slapped down on the young girl's shoulder. But Yi Qing Luo laughed softly. Chapter 2770. At the same time, under her feet, a complicated footwork was displayed at this moment. Second Palace Lord's palm wind barely brushed past Yi Qing Luo's shoulder and hit the ground. And, the black veil on Second Palace Lord's face was pulled down by Yi Qing Luo. That veil was fixed to Second Palace Lord's hair. Yi Qing Luo's pull. She also pulled the hairpin fixed to Second Palace Lord's hair. A head of black hair, scattered messily, like ink, pouring behind her. Without the black veil covering her face, it was revealed in Yi Qing Luo's eyes. The woman's face was exquisite, a pair of captivating eyes, slightly raised, giving a very seductive arc, small and straight nose. Bright red lips, revealing a tempting luster. This face. It was indeed Yi Qing Qian's face. Exactly the same facial features, not a single bit different. But it felt like something was different. For example, temperament. Like. Feeling. As compared to the previous Yi Qing Qian. This face was more captivating. In the most straightforward words, it was. The previous Yi Qing Qian, even if she was smiling, flirtatious and flirtatious. In other people's eyes, this was indeed very beautiful. But beauty was only that for a moment. Once it was over, it would be thrown to the back of one's mind. But, the current Yi Qing Qian was different. The current Yi Qing Qian had a kind of extremely seductive temperament. The entire person was like a fox spirit, transforming into a human. Every move, every smile and every frown. Both of them exuded a kind of unforgettable charm that would be engraved in one's heart. This person was Yi Qing Qian, but also not Yi Qing Qian. Yi Qing Luo stared at Second Palace Lord's face. Her half-squinted eyes had some fluctuations. At the guest seating, numerous people also saw Second Palace Lord's face. One must know, Yi Qing Qian's identity was the eldest miss of Three Springs sect. Although Yi Qing Luo took over the position of young sect master. But, in the entire Nirvana realm, who didn't treat Yi Qing Qian as the next Three Springs sect master? Because of this, Yi Qing Qian represented the Yi family, attending many banquets. Her portrait was also circulated in Nirvana realm. Naturally, many people recognized her. Immediately, they couldn't help but shout out, "Yi Qing Qian." This name, which could be considered familiar, became a hot topic among the guests. The Second Palace Master's ashen face gradually turned uglier and uglier as he listened to the discussions around him. An indescribable emotion surged in her beautiful eyes. Gradually, she raised her hand and touched her face. From her mouth, she lightly spat out 3 words, Yi Qing Qian." As his voice fell, the second palace master clenched his fists and a strange sneer appeared on his face. She kept her whip and turned around, walking towards the direction of the sedan. "Take them, let's go." The second palace master lifted the black veil and sat in the sedan. The four beautiful maids each grabbed Mei, Yan Zhenfei, Sun Yutong, and the others, then lifted the palanquin and flew away. Yiqing Luo stood at her original spot, with no intention to stop him. They watched as the second palace master's palanquin disappeared into the ink-black sky. The cold and charming voice of the vice palace master came with the wind. "Little girl, don't celebrate too early. The Palace of Darkness will take revenge for your offense." The wind stopped. The voice dissipated. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she kept her glower flame fan. Just as she was about to return to Dmo Xian's side, she hadn't even turned around. A strong and powerful arm had already encircled her waist. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.